And we're live. Hello and welcome to the 31st episode of Game Theory Gang. I'm your host, Maddie Allen. We have a great show for you today. Nobody can tell if I'm totally joking or being serious about Zen Kitties. So go ahead and mint that like button while I bring up our guest for today. Chrispy man, what's up?
Hi, Maddie. How are you, Maddie? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, man. The bear market, it's treating us hexicans pretty well. I was looking at all the free money we've been getting from actual airdrops like Pulse Dogecoin, Weight Token, even Hedron. It's all it pays to be a hexican, I guess.
Pays to be a Mexican. That's for sure. I got my finger on the button for my kitties, so you got to tell me where to send.
Yeah,
Get my Zen kitties. I saw that in the title.
yeah. So I mean, that's I guess an inside joke for people who have been in crypto for a while, because crypto kitties, that was something that clogged up the Ethereum network and proved to everybody that it wasn't ready for mainstream mass adoption, because even a simple game where you get to like crossbreed your JPEGs and the price can go up a lot, that caused Ethereum to get clogged up back in 2017 or something. So
it did.
And nowadays we have a new version of something clogging up the Ethereum network, and that's something called Zen with an X on it. And yeah, so that's the joke for people who are new.
So nobody get upset. There's no Zen kitties yet.
Yeah, there are no Zen kitties yet. I'm sure somebody will come along and make them and all that. And I got lots of other ideas for what people could make. Zen Edron is the new Hedron of Zen. Ooh. Zen ICOA is the new ICO where the OA dumps their bags. I'm not going to explain that one until later. Minimus Zen AO is the new Maxi DAO for Zen. And then you have
a lot of thought into this.
Zen Doge.
Zen Doge. Zen Doge. I kind of like that one.
Yeah. And what's not to like?
Very creative. Well, I'm ready to start launching them when you are.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm not going to be launching any tokens myself. And as always, I've got lots of updates for later in the program about my project, Time Pays Me, which is not a token and is in fact a way for people to be able to reverse a hack going forward, and to also be able to time lock your PulseChain and PulseX tokens. But I guess the first topic that people are weighing in on these days on the HEX YouTube is about Zen. So I guess for people who are only tuning into this stream once a week, and the people who've watched every bit of HEX content that there is out there, I think Chrispy and I might be able to do a pretty good job of recapping, like, what the community sentiment is and what the, get a read on what's going on out there for everybody, and maybe offer some hot takes that people haven't heard yet.
Woohoo. Yes. Yes, it's a crisis of sorts.
Yeah. Do go on. A crisis, you say?
Yes, it is. Well, so last time we had spoken, I mentioned, I kind of feel guilty even thinking about other stuff. I've been really re-examining this last week, my my thoughts on HEX, not anything negative, but maybe I'm just not maxy enough. Ooh, that might be a little rough. That did not be maxy enough, right? But what I was kind of getting at is thinking at this thing, the Zen rolls out and 500,000 wallets spend $2 million on gas. And there's a reason for that. I mean, so without, conflating, different issues, all this other stuff, but people were motivated to load up some gas, push a button or have a bot push a button and spend $2 million on something that has no value yet. Now, of course, afterwards, somebody did set up LP. And so it just got me thinking about, well, what should I be doing, with stuff. And so I did buy more HEX this week. And
Me too.
yeah. Actually, I think you mentioned that offhand, or maybe you didn't. Somebody else said that. So there's a lot of people buying HEX this week, and particularly coming off of some of the discussion from Richard. But anyways, I was just kind of reassessing, what is the right thing to do? We get in these maxi argument discussions. And I see a lot of different sides, to it. Like there isn't just one answer for everybody. But from a messaging point of view, it's kind of like I should be investing any of my, my thinking, right? I got my bags or Hex bags. Where should I be investing? I should be investing in Hex. But hasn't that gotten kind of weird now, hasn't it? Right? PulseX, derivative coins. So where does it end? Where's the line? And I'm guessing a lot of the people listening are struggling with the same thing. Because it's a lot simpler in my head just to be like super focused on only buy Hex and only stake Hex. I mean, that's the purest, most successful route I've seen so far, and that's in front of me, in my experience, for me. So, I'll end there.
Yeah. I think overall the community is pretty divided, which I mean, at least on Twitter is kind of informative sometimes when people explain why they think a certain thing. And of course that's a minority of posts that you see, is like where people are actually able to explain their reasoning on something. But yeah, I wouldn't mind, us kind of reviewing what people are saying about Zen and what some of the controversy has been, because hey, we're in a bear market, and this is kind of an issue. It's like brings up the issue of, is this a vampire attack on the community? Is it something new and innovative? Like, is it a good idea to try it out? Is it a good idea to promote it? Right? These are all questions that, like you, I see people asking.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I mean, I think one of the main arguments I've seen people go back and forth on is like, should people be putting money into something that's not Hex? And I think that's a decision that people have to make on their own. And whenever you're learning about something and doing your own research, it can be pretty exciting to, just as a matter of principle, because you're motivated to learn about something, and you see that something could have a bright future and that you could be early to something. And I think the big takeaway here is that there's nothing wrong with maybe spending $5 here and there to learn things, or at least I don't see any problem with that. I think what I'm trying to get out of this whole drama, so to speak, is how can I go about crypto in the best way possible? How can I inform my audience about what can be most helpful and how to not get wrecked and all those kind of things. So it's it's really interesting to see the community kind of divided. It seems like K4K Crypto made a couple of videos early on that said, hey, the math doesn't look really great on this because it's so inflationary. Jim Rat Crypto made some good videos informing people about how he was going to play it and that he was going to participate and that sort of thing. And yeah, I don't know. We made some comments last week about how certain strategies might focus on not spending too much gas and kind of taking a wait and see approach overall, somewhere in between like don't do more than 2 wallets a day to like, maybe you don't want to participate if you think your money could be better spent elsewhere. But then it seems like the creator of Zen, Jack Levin, then said some pretty weird things about the OA. Did you hear about this?
Oh yeah, I listened to a couple of the tapes on it, but I also had paid attention when he spoke to Richard the first time. And while I think that and you'll probably go over what he said exactly to the word, I think that what he had to say, or at least what I heard on what's been going around Twitter and on YouTube, a little bit out of context. It might have been a little insensitive, spur of the moment from him to say that, but it seemed pretty consistent with when he was on with Richard at the conference. And just his speaking, because somebody outright asked him, what could Richard do to change this? And he said, "Wow, because he thinks the OA and his view. I didn't find it as an attack, but I can see how some people took it as a super negative attack, right?" And he said, "Well, maybe what the OA could do is burn all the tokens and prove that it's not a problem." And then I think again, it was kind of a casual comment on. I took it as kind of a casual, maybe it meant something more than that on PulseChain, was saying that PulseChain might be a scam until it's actually executed, something of that nature. He used different words, better words than that. But again, listening to it, I wasn't super, super outraged looking for a fight, but I did see lots of the Twitters, right, that came after.
I was pretty outraged.
Mm.
I was pretty outraged by the comment because, and maybe it was due to the context that I saw because I didn't see the full context, but when I've seen people playing the clip, 2-minute clip of Jack talking in Spaces, and it seems like Jack came to the Pulse conference, that I invited him to, and I invited him because he said he liked HEX. And it seemed like he was getting his voice out there to promote HEX. And then when he's there with Richard, making a name for himself among Hexicans by being one of the featured people that gets to, talk to the founder of HEX.
Yep.
It was like Richard asked him like, "Well, why do you like HEX?" And he like sidestepped the question, called Richard a scammer, and like tried, and then went into like all these things about how Richard should be, setting Lamborghinis on fire or something. And so now it's like, yeah, so that's kind of interesting that's one thing I've seen of Jack's behavior, right? Like if we're talking about founder behaviors, right? If we're criticizing founders, then let's criticize both of them, right? Like, I think, Jack, I don't know. I think there are a lot of things that, probably the biggest thing that puts me off about Jack is he says himself that he came up with the idea for creating a cryptocurrency when people were joking with him about creating apple cider vinegar coin. And I remember when he tweeted that was like a couple months ago. So he threw together all this game theory, and people are supposed to be able to use that for years and years to come. Seems like kind of reckless. Seems like kind of the Silicon Valley move fast and break things, that sort of thing, versus many of us know how HEX was carefully planned, even to make sure that like day one FOMO people would, not be hurt as bad because the supply was doubled on the first day, in terms of what people were able to get out of the adoption amplifier. And so when it comes to Zen, it seems like just establishing a market price and everything is going to be a much bumpier ride for Zen, which is already down like 95% or something from the first price that people were paying for it. So that's kind of one of my criticisms right now, I would say, is like, if he if he really did get the idea from Jim Rat Crypto, from him being interviewed on Jim Rat Crypto show, like that's not very much time to put into something that seems very similar to Hex in a lot of ways. Seems like he kind of copied the time locking part of Hex, and he pretty much made a proof of weight token that's disguised as a proof of participation.
Yeah, I can understand all those thoughts and feelings. There are a lot of different ways to look at this one, and I have, and of course, I come from that kind of, I don't know. I had 6 kids, man, right? I've been married for 38 years, so I got a lot of resolution of conflict stuff. So I don't, so I don't unnecessarily fly off the hammer with things. So when I think about stuff, so I like to examine the different ideas. Drives people nuts that I work with, but um, there's many possibilities here. Yes, I felt like it's a vampire attack. Yes, I thought it was weird immediately. Um, because the guy had some number in his profile. He's on stream with Richard. I mean, okay, don't put myself as forward as Mr. Levin, but I chatted back and forth with Richard very mildly, like with a text message once 2 years ago, right, or a year ago. I don't have that kind of access, so who the hell is this guy, right? So I get how people feel like that, right? But I also understand we're trying to market and build, and that might be how that happened, right? Yeah, so I was a little put off with how it came down. I mean, guy shows up, all of a sudden he's on every channel, doesn't seem to have any hacks, has like mild kind of criticism initially, suddenly is launching a coin. But to put that aside for a moment, right? So he also, and this happened to me today because I went through and looked at the paperwork a little bit more, the write up and the white paper. On the surface, the idea was help the crypto community with onboarding more people through an educational approach that gives them something to do, that gets them acclimated with security and wallets and transactions and how contracts might interact. And it does that. So there may be all sorts of other stuff on the outside. There might be motivations people think are there. There might be real motivations, but truly, just like if I with Hex, if I sit down with somebody and put them through the paces, they got to figure out how to on ramp. They got to figure out how to get a wallet. They have to figure out how to get their hardware wallet. They got to figure out how to claim, whether it was a swap in the case of something else or that. So there's some education going on for certain for new people. So anyways, that's just one track. I mean, that's on the surface what they're saying they're doing. This is an educational tool to teach people about crypto and onboard them.
Yeah, I mean that could be a benefit, and I could see how Zen might kind of onboard people to Hex someday, but I mean, not if it's created in competition, not if it's, being disingenuous about even the fair launch. I mean, you may have more insight into this than I do, but like somebody, Dev Huey on Twitter was accusing, seemed to be accusing Zen of having like basically pre-mined the first 20 blocks, which maybe it was just a really fast bot that, got in there, even though it wasn't associated with the founder, but I didn't see Jack like responding to that. Although it seemed like he was aware of it. Like it seemed like he dodged the question on Twitter. So, but there was like, oh yeah, I remember he said like, why don't you post, instead of having this beautiful chart that you've made, like showing exactly what happened, why don't you post the Etherscan transactions? And then the guy did, and there was no response. And so it's like, everybody can see that these first 20 blocks with the highest C rank all got in there 5 blocks before everybody else, during which time Jack was, announcing that there was a problem and a delay and stuff. So,
Sure.
some people were speculating that it might have been programmed in the contract, or that somebody was just queued up to
Mm,
not make it so fair, it seems.
I don't know about that. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on this. I didn't, when I looked at the contract, I didn't see anything weird, but I'm no expert. But I will tell you this. I will tell you this, right? I know how to go very rudimentally, whatever. I have a rudimentary understanding of going to a smart contract and running functions directly, right? And so it's quite plausible that somebody out in that community was ready and waiting, and as soon as that thing got published, push the button and they got in. Particularly if they're smart enough to do all the things you would do to increase your GUI, increase your gas, make sure you're the first block, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't put as much value as being first in there, but I know some people did, right? And so it could be them, it could be somebody else, who knows who it actually was. Unless they come forward and want to talk about it, maybe they will. You know, there's certainly a lot of people that I heard were going to go in with bots, or with
Yeah.
scripts. So, and I'll tell you this, I don't think with the one that I did first. Yes, I did one. I did more than one, but I, I did. I will talk about that maybe later too. But I was like 12,000 or 15,000. I'm going to show you how quick I was. Right, I was nowhere near in the
Hmm.
beginning. So.
Yeah, I played around with some wallets, and but that was probably on the second day or whatever. And I just I think it's really hard for people to understand what a log 2 chart does with a bunch of other like weird parameters on it. And so I feel like that Zen could have done a better job of being transparent about how the hyperinflation period would look, if it was really trying to help people. Then you could have just had a graph. Again, why are you rushing things so much? Why aren't you thinking about like what the user's experience is? And it seems like, just kind of weird that there was so much missing information kind of when it comes to that.
Hmm.
I don't know.
And it could be, motivations are motivations too. Right? This stuff is like, software is hard. Right?
Mhm.
Well, you know what I mean. But, you know, like for instance, we can talk about Hex and pick on a few things too. But I like Hex in that if I put the number of days in, it'll tell me what date it is, right?
Yes.
Now I know that this is no hard thing to do, right, on a interface, right?
Mhm.
So why wasn't it done? Well, either wasn't done because either they don't want it to be done, they want it to be more difficult, or they have some other reason for it. Don't know. Maybe it just wasn't a priority. Right. So when people are sitting there trying to figure out, am I doing 1 day or doing 300 days or 100 days? When does that end? You know, maybe that's part of the learning process. I don't know. It's hard to kind of conceive why somebody would leave out certain bits and pieces like that. Right. That would obviously have made it easier for me to interact.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
But I had to do more work, right? And so that work caused maybe learning. I'm not trying to defend it, by the way. I just kind of, I guess I'm playing devil's advocate, but I mean, I had to sit down and say, well, what is this thing going to do? And if I want it to come out in 30 days, how many days is that from now? Well, that's 30. What date will that be? So I can put down the right note to tell myself, I mean, there's some tracking and stuff that goes with it. But there's a lot of other protocols that I've used that all have some very similar things. Just something that I find, maybe a lot of other people find useful, but is not implemented. You know, there's other examples I could probably dig up.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I want to like give people a benefit of the doubt, but it's just the crypto space is just so scammy. and it's so hard to make something that's truly valuable, that truly has the best interest of the user at heart, and leaves enough meat on the bone, for people in the future, and like all the things where Hex really got things right. Again, it seems like, Hex took over 2 years to create. Zen took a couple months. And, it was just kind of, yeah. So I think that if you have the attitude of, you want the minimum viable product, like that's not good enough for most hexicans and people who are used to Richard Hart products. Like, we don't want the minimum, we want the best. And so again, like I don't see anything wrong with people playing out the experiment of, what happens when I mint something that's quote unquote free, kind of like Bitcoin was in the early days. But I mean, even that narrative is like, doesn't really hold a lot of weight. I mean, it sounds good at the surface, but it's like, what? So like Jack's the only guy who like came along in the past 11 years, like who remembered what the first principles were of crypto. Like, just because you tell a cool story about what the first principles of crypto are doesn't mean that you can recreate Bitcoin. It doesn't mean that you're not going to like if you onboard millions of people into crypto and give them a bad experience, that's worse almost than getting people into crypto and giving them, or it's almost worse than like just not getting them in. Like, people's first experience with crypto should be something that sets them up for the right long-term behaviors, something that's good for people. And most cryptos are designed to be traded or are poorly designed with like game theory and tokenomics and stuff. And so,
Well,
yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thought. And I think that when I bring people in and have brought people into Hex, that's what I think I'm doing. But I got to think probably 95% of the people that are introduced to crypto today, they're not getting a great experience. They're coming in because, Sheeb was at the top and it looked like a really good time to buy and they get wrecked. You know, you can name a bunch of different things like that. So, um, yeah, yeah, but I get you. I get you why you would want it to be, this type of engagement. I was left. You would want it to be a positive engagement rather than a negative. I was left with a little bit of awe. Okay, if you say maybe some people watching will say, "Hey, this was the Hex community that got involved. That's why it was big." But I was kind of left in awe of that. People had, and it's still going on, right? People had the economic energy to do $2 or $3 million worth of gas. Not to mention the wherewithal to stick to it to create all these wallets. I mean, go up to 600,000, 700,000 wallets in a couple of days, and thinking, okay, so what am I doing wrong? I can't convince those guys and ladies to go buy more Hex and stake it. We need to do. What is it? What is it that we could do? Is there anything we can do? Is there something different? Because I know also, part of this is we're in this doldrum of the bear market,
Mhm.
right? And that as soon as Hex does its first next double, let's say, right? Actually, it's already done a double, right? Since it's been in the bear market went up to 7 cents, right, or whatever. But anyways, let's say we start back up on a rise. We get a confirmed rise. People are going to be. It would be no problem getting people to go jump in and do stuff. But the time to really get into Hex is now, right? It's at the like low, super, super, super low prices, you
Yeah.
know. And so, if you believe in that asset and what it's going to do in the future, picking it up at 95, 94% down is the time to do it. Anyways, I was just kind of like contemplating, like, you know, how do we hijack? And I don't mind borrowing some stuff from other projects. How do we hijack some other projects and approaches? I don't know what it looks like to reinvigorate our base because we obviously have a lot of people who are itching to do something.
Mhm. Um, your audio is still kind of it's a little bit intermittent, and it seems like your video is like also kind of pausing from time to time. And so I'm not sure if maybe if you restart your browser and come back in, or maybe close anything else that's running in the background, maybe that would help.
I will do that.
Um, Sweet.
All right, you keep going. I'll be listening.
Okay. No problem. Yeah. So I saw one comment here, somebody saying like, why, how can you FUD Zen when it's been live for a few days? I'm trying to keep an open mind, and it may seem like I'm fudding it. I think that when somebody comes in and starts fudding the HEX OA or criticizing it, and then also is not really being super transparent about certain things, then I'm pretty tough on everything. And that's because I want to understand it, because really the types of things that I'm worried about are improving crypto in a big way. For example, the the project that I'm launching has no coin. It has no sacrifice. It's a way for people to time lock their PulseChain and PulseX tokens. And so I've already had a good taste of what it's like to develop something. If you're looking at the front end that I made for Hex, along with Future Us, that's something that came out 15 months ago, and it's been operating, since then. But any design decisions where people are time locking anything, that game theory is super complex. And I'm sure I will talk for hours and hours and hours and hours just to explain the like hundreds of hours that have had to go in to getting stuff right. And so I really think that you can do your own math on this one, and the amount of money that people are putting into this thing probably isn't going to be a big deal at the end of the day. I think it's more just a question of how are we going to look at it, and what is it that we like or don't like about this thing, and how does it compare to the things we do like, and if at the end of the day, if like people in the community, if they want to spend lots of money on Zen, or spend a little bit of money, or totally shun it, or whatever you want to do, like I don't really see the big deal. But it does seem like something that is noteworthy that people are talking about. And so that's why I'm trying to make sense of it all. Again, because I want to give my users the best experience possible. And so because I'm creating something that allows people to time lock, and Hex is something that allows people to time lock, and Zen is something that allows people to time lock. But the fact that it's so kind of like disinflationary over time, like it inflates greatly, and then eventually that inflation like becomes less and less over time. I think it's just really hard for people to kind of conceptualize, because there's a lack of transparency there when it comes to the math of how the math works out. And of course, the adoption curve is something that really can't be predicted, but still, Zen could be giving people a lot more information that would help them make an informed decision about whether even, like even $100 can turn into millions in crypto. Like I went over that last week or the week before, the example of Greg, who bought $102 worth of Bitcoin back in 2011, and it would have turned into tens of millions of dollars if he had time locked it, and would have turned it into even more money if Time Pays Me, my product, was available then, because and he was using wrapped BTC, which didn't even exist yet because Ethereum wasn't there yet. But if we do a thought experiment of how that would have played out numbers wise, even a little bit of EES, like even if we just apply the numbers from HEX that were of how many people have emergency end staked and like what those fees would look like. I mean, that would be millions of dollars more as well. So the highest APY that people can get in crypto seems to be a function of the rare situations where something has extreme product market fit, where it hits a nerve with people, either because it's designed so well, or, I mean, in the case of SHIB and HEX are the only two things that did a 10,000x did a 18,000x in 656 days or less. And HEX is the only one that did it from inception that quickly. And so, I mean, with SHIB, I think it was capitalizing, it was kind of hitting the nerve of Occupy Wall Street. Like a continuation of that whole movement is basically like, if the whole financial system is rigged, then I'm going to give you the middle finger by buying, a copy of a crypto that has a dog as a JPEG, because dogs are the most popular animal, like pretty much on the planet, for people to have as a pet. So it's kind of like, an FU to the financial system. So certain things, certain things vastly outperform everything else in crypto based on whether they have product market fit, and then basically how long can you hold on to them. With SHIB, if you're up 1,000x, it's really hard to get to the 18,000x, because you never know how high it can go and human emotions take over. So being able to dollar cost average out of something like you can do in HEX, like you can do with Time Pays Me in the future, those are all things that I think are really critical to people's understanding of what the best forms of time locking can be in crypto. So that's why I'm even paying attention to Zen at all. It's because it's related to time locking. Welcome back.
And I'm live.
All right.
Maybe you can hear me. I don't know.
I think I can.
I had to run out to the store, get a pack of smokes. I'm back.
All right.
So where were you?
Oh, I was just.
Can you repeat the last 15 minutes for me?
Yeah, I was just talking about like why it seems like I'm fighting Zen. It's like, because I really just want to understand.
See, that's the challenge. Yeah. So here's the thing is, right, I think I know, right, because I'm a believer in HEX, right? So I think I know where the right place is to put my my funds and my assets, right? So it kind of feels like talking about other stuff and doing other stuff may encourage other people to go into other stuff. And from a really, really narrow viewpoint, anything that ain't HEX is competition. Competing for eyeballs, competing for time, competing for money.
Yeah, that's what Hexo said.
Yeah, and so I truly get that. I truly get that viewpoint, And then, but you see this, and it's a real conversation, right? Yeah, we can be pretty explosive at other people about it when they bring it up, but yeah, we have a wide variety of people came into the community with a wide variety of experiences, and not all of them at the same level. Not all of them waited 2 years for HEX. So not all of them did all the stupid things like I did, buying Linda coin and Jack coin and you name the coin in 2017 and watching it all go to zero when I thought I was really brilliant.
Yeah.
Anyways, the point I'm trying to get to is everybody went through all this, and they didn't all go through the same experiences of everybody screaming, the end is near at 3,000 for Bitcoin, that is, right? Or the genesis afterwards. And so, yeah, so I also get that on the one hand, it might be the best protection you could do to try to protect people and try to direct them towards what you think is really great. But then you get criticized for pumping your own bags, which of course you're trying to pump your own bags, but that's not the motivation, necessarily the primary motivation, right? Certainly not with people I tell about things, right? Anyways, it creates this weirdness now that we've got to walk both lines, and they're different business models. And in a way, that's one way those are my words, nobody else's. But I got my hex hat and how I need to act with that, and I got my derivative hat and how I need to act with that, and then I have my everything else hat. Maybe they got 10 of them. I don't know. And how do I deal with all that stuff? Because it was pretty before we could just say everything's hex and it's all on ETH, but now we're not all on ETH, right? Well, we are at the moment, but I mean, we got the ETH fair and we've got the ETH POW, and then we're going to have the PulseChain, and God knows what else happens. And not only do we have derivatives that have derivatives, and meme coins that are having baby meme coins. And I just got to figure out how to do a Zen kitty, right? So we can start merging some of these doges and enus.
That's why everybody's here. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why they came, because they saw the title. I'm looking for that next opportunity. But I guess what I'm getting at is we have all this stuff going on that now we can't. It's easy. It's like when you're on a actually Richard said this a bunch of times. It's easy when you're pretty single-minded and you're trying, and you've talked about this too, Maddie. You're trying to create a new habit, whether it's substance habit, exercise habit, these types of things. You may be successful, you may not be, but you got to focus
Yeah.
on that. And you got to focus for like 6 months. And even if you focus for like 6 months, the statistics say that you're going to fail after 6 months, and then you got to try again.
Yeah.
Right? Because otherwise you can't make it stick. And you got to do that more and more. And so, yeah, we got all this stuff going on, and it was real easy before when I was just like, hex only. All I got to worry about is hex. And actually, it was pretty liberating too, because
Yes.
I wasn't worried about what second of the day a mint was going to end because my penalty starts, right? As an example. And I don't have to worry about whether or not right now is the right time to get my ceiling price or get as close to a price as I want it to be. Because now it's like trading's reintroduced,
Yeah.
So maybe there's a place for all of this stuff to exist without a lot of infighting. I don't know what that mix looks like, but maybe there's a way for all this to exist together where the people who choose to be hex maxis understand why they want to be hex maxis, maybe for some of these reasons, like following maybe Richard's tenants and combined with first principles of crypto, but everybody understands what that is and why it's being done that way, because these people are making a choice. And probably Hexo probably says it the best out of everybody I've heard. Or should say, probably says it in a way that angers the fewest people, right? When he talks about it. But maybe there is a place, and of course we're eking it out, and then maybe it should be that we have a place for people to talk about the derivatives, right? They certainly, and to some extent, the fact that they can survive getting past the maxis to create their own segment of the community is what you really need, right? Because without that conflict, maybe, or that stressor, you wouldn't have the two existing strongly next to each other, assuming they're strong, right? But maybe this is the way things have to go. I don't know. But I do think about it. I do think about it like you were talking.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I love the most about this show in its first year on Tuesday nights, Quant Gang, is that we had, usually when we had 4 or 5 people on every week, we had 3 or 4 or 5 opposite opinions from each other.
Mm.
And it was like we could all still get along at the end of the day, um, and respect the diversity of opinions that occurred. And I think that that has definitely gotten lost in the noise of the bear market, is like more openness to really just learn from each other, and like to be able to choose for ourselves, and just have that kind of as an assumption that like, well, of course we're not all going to agree, and like of course some of us are going to be wrong some of the time, and it's better to just hash it out in public so that everybody can come along on this journey of us figuring it all out together. And so maybe like, this discussion is also in that same tradition of, because for me, I mean, hey, I minted some wallets. I put $200 or less into Zen, probably less. Uh, and I'm playing the game, like, and I'm not sure how much I like it yet. The first wallet that I made lost a couple dollars, and then the next one I uh, made like 10 or $15. So hey, I'm still down like, you know, probably still down like $180, right? Because uh, I don't know how
Mm.
it's going to play out over time, and that's my total investment. But um, for yeah, for other people, just like you said, I mean, there are going to be audiences that want to hear about derivatives and stuff like that. And then there are going to be other people who really want to stay true to Hex only, and or Richard Hart products only. And I think that, in my experience, just because somebody who got into Hex a year ago, just because they aren't up on their investment, doesn't mean that they're not like anybody else who got into Hex in the first year it existed and was down on their investment for a long time. And so even the argument that like, hexagons are all hexagon broadcasters are in it just to pump their own bags, like, I can tell you that's not true for me. I mean, it's like, you know, people I'm probably most criticized for my dissent on the whole Hedron thing. I'm like, look, if I liked Hedron better, my bags would be doing better. Okay. Like I
Yeah,
am funding my own bag when I talk about Hedron, and like I am losing an audience because of that. But that's okay, because I'm not here to just pump my own bags. I'm here because I'm in it for the tech.
sure.
As much of a meme as that could be, it's true.
Well, let me throw this at you too. First, you still have a pretty strong crossover that a lot of people who are in that community, the Hadron and ICOSA community, also at least had occasion listen to you, right? Perhaps there was an intersection of loss, right? Um, but every I don't want to talk about those guys exactly. So let's talk about splitting, right? Because I don't want to portray any group in a particular way. But when you decide something else is good, I think you'll be able to explain this in much better words than I can. When you decide that something else would be good to pursue, you're rejecting what it was you were with before, right? And most people are pretty simple, and it's A or B, right? Not everyone can really manage the shades of A to B, right? And so it's either hex or it's this other thing. And the people who really feel strongly, it's like a lot of things we deal with in our society. You're like hex is the thing, but then this other guy wants to do this new XYZ coin, and he's in it. Well, XYZ is the thing, and well, now they're going to talk about that. And at least on the surface, that's the thing, right, for them. And now you're saying my thing isn't good because you believe in this thing. And because I didn't join you with XYZ, then you're saying it's not any good. And you end up with weird. Sorry, Maddie, I lost you. Anyways, my opinion is you end up with some weird interactions between people because of that, because they're making different choices. Um, Yeah, I know. I think a lot of people that might be listening as well listened to Quant Gang for quite a while. My favorite show for a year, right? Really miss you guys all being together and talking.
Yeah.
Really wish you guys could all be together again. However, right, there's another thing that goes on, right? Teams and groups don't always last forever. Sometimes they last a long time. All right. You storm, you norm, you break up. That's how things work, right? I mean, whether it's because you wanted it to or different people want to go in different directions, that's the process, right? People come together, you have a little bit of storming back and forth, some tolerations, some consensus, whatever. You finally get to a point where you kind of normalize. You guys were normalized for 6, 7 months, and then you shoot off into different directions. And that's natural and normal, right? Um, for those types of groups. So yeah, I mean, we all have different things that we want to pursue. I just hate to think that because you know this, right? Because I'm already involved. Like, I told you they have ICOSA stuff and that stuff that I participated. Hey, it'd be terrible if you were like, oh, I don't want to talk to you because you did that, right? That would seem to me be like super silly,
Mhm.
right? To do that. But I'm close enough into your same thinking that we're able to travel the same path, right? At the moment,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
But if I was on here saying, "Hey, man, this other thing that I came from was the worst thing ever, and everybody lied to me, and they're all cheating me, and I have this new thing," now is that they can't have that conversation at the same time. Like, there's no way to resolve it.
Yeah.
It's just the way I think about stuff, you know.
Um, Absolutely. Yeah. All that rings true with me as well. Um, and I guess another point to belabor here is like for a lot of people, maybe they don't understand why the OA could be a good thing. A lot of us, like we've been down that road and we understand why the OA can be a good thing, why it's an acceptable risk that like even if one person owns it, which we can't prove, um, why that
I
would
got
be a
yeah.
really, really, really good thing.
Yeah, I got that question today from somebody who was heckling me on chats.
Yeah.
How do you know it's the OA? I don't. So you guys are just guessing. Yes. I mean, educated guess. I don't know. You know who the OA is? You tell me. We'll go ask. But I don't know who it is. I mean, I suspect things, right? We all suspect. I can follow the addresses, but yeah, you're right. We don't know a lot of these things, right?
But the fact that somebody owns 90 or 95% of the coins, like that could be off-putting to somebody who doesn't realize how valuable it can be to have such centralized ownership, especially if that entity has never sold a single coin that we know of on chain. We can see all the coins on chain. So that's a pretty unique situation right there. Um, because most stocks, or all stocks and like many cryptos that primarily trade on centralized exchanges, they don't show you their books in
Mm.
real time. And they don't tell you who owns what and when the coins are moving and stuff. So that's a big deal right there. And then, um, the fact that, the fact that the APY is much higher, basically the amount of inflation that's paid for people to hold the price up is closer to 38% when everything is said and done. And I want to get into that too, because I saw Hodl Dog was questioning if that number is still true or not, which we can get into. But just the
Oh yeah.
fact that the OA is not staking most of its coins, it's about 16% staked, I believe, and that well, by my estimation. And that is a really good thing for everybody else to help incentivize people time locking. And I could also see, as I think you and I have discussed publicly, that there could be a case for the OA, like even staking more, but that would be done as a lever being used within a system that's become pretty well known in terms of wanting to transfer more value into price appreciation
Yes.
compared to people who got in early. And so any way you cut it, at the end of the day, if the OA didn't own as many coins, then it wouldn't have the ability to protect the system from um, malicious forks, from certain vampire attacks, and be able to protect the system even from itself in terms of incentivizing people to hold up the price by allowing so much of the smart contract inflation to go to people who are holding for the long term. And so,
Sure.
yeah, it's just really
Well,
silly to me that Jack was like concern trolling and saying like, oh, like Richard could get hacked and then the price of Hex would go to zero or something. I'm not sure that he said go to zero, but he was implying that it's a problem with Hex that the OA owns so many coins. Like at the end of the day, are you more worried about an imaginary horrible of Richard getting hacked? Or are you more worried about the things that we know the OA has been doing positively, which also included stopping people from recycling ETH and arbitraging the price during the launch phase? And so, like, because somebody by the account of Hexologist, he like explained in one of his episodes that I posted, I think on my community tab, or I tweeted about it. I mean, he went over somebody was trying to ruin Hex by eating up all the supply and arbitraging the price between the adoption amplifier and the exchanges that people were using. And so I think that's another really interesting example of how the OA actually did something in reality that helped Hexicans. The OA helped with the launch mechanics of the big payday to stop traders from coming in and wrecking the price up to like 3 times more than they would have right when everybody was getting into Hex. Lots of people got into Hex because of the big payday. And so to stop that from being more of a disaster of the price, right, and an incentive, like there's a strict balance there. And so I think it's important to rehash this history and to remind people why it is that the OA in reality has been such a net positive to the system, that if the OA wasn't there, we wouldn't be having anything to protect because Hex wouldn't be operating so well. If you let the price crash by 3x more after big payday, I don't know that you would have gotten to a 10,000x in less than 2.5 years. And so it, every little thing makes a big difference when it comes to all this game theory stuff. That was a big rant, but
well, yeah, and I'm just thinking, of course, the hex code is immutable, right? So it's already built, it's already running, it's not changing. In this situation, right? OA exists, right? Whatever happened with the OA and how it operates, it works the way it does. There is no burn function, right? There is no burn. So it's really off the table that you can burn.
That was something that I reported on incorrectly. I believe that burning coins is like, it's not like an all or none thing. I mean, it's based on like the certainty of knowing whether you're sending to an address that has keys that have been destroyed or not. And so that some people send to like 0x and then like all zeros and then dead at the end. And I'm not sure even like what the validation is that those keys are burned or like destroyed. But
well, I guess
yeah.
within the send, within the contract, within hex, you cannot send to the zero address directly. So, and that which is typically used for burning, right? You can't send it there directly. You can send it to the contract address, but then, I guess you're right. It gets into the definition. What do you mean by burn? But here's
Yeah.
the thing: is wherever you send them, they still exist. So they're they're going to affect the calculation for yield wherever they
That's a
are,
good point.
and
That's a
whatever
good point.
point, whatever situation they're in. So yeah, I think it's kind of a moot point. But yeah, I'm right there with you. The argument being you should run your house differently. You should run this thing differently than you're running it because it would be better because I like it better if you run it better. But
Yeah.
I think that just stays at the door, man. You just kind of like move on. Noted.
Well,
That's
you
not how
know,
we do it.
Jack asked Richard to his face at the Pulse Conference online whether he would blow up his own supercar for publicity. Now he just upped the game by asking Richard to burn billions of dollars worth of HEX. So I don't see that happening anytime soon, thankfully, because I think that any gains that you would get with the economic certainty that comes with the OA, let's even say that the OA wanted to time lock all of their HEX or some of their HEX in a smart contract, right? Like time pays me would allow that to happen basically. And, you know, I could see disadvantages to that. Not because time pays me is not going to give people an advantage, but because of how much of how beneficial it is for the OA to have the freedom to use those coins as it sees fit. Again, because there could be a malicious, there could be a malicious fork. There could be something that we're not anticipating, and that it's certainly been true in the past that there were things that the community was not anticipating that the OA helped us with, like big payday. So,
yep, very true. Well, I think we pretty much know. At least we don't suspect at any time now that somebody's doing anything with the OA. So it's going to do what it does.
What's up, Russ? Thanks for being a subscriber to the channel. Saying at the end of the day, it's the end of the day. It's so true.
Good day.
Brissology says Zen needed better launchonomics. Yeah.
That's funny.
And we saw Steph come out really strong against Zen, which is kind of interesting. And apparently he's going to be on Jim Rat Crypto's show.
Yeah, I saw that. I love Steph, so I can't wait to hear that.
I like Steph too.
No. See, people don't realize that guy. Well, it's hard to. Maybe your viewers realize just how much he did, and how much he got into helping the community in the beginning. And certainly you haven't heard about it because he's very humble about it. I think fairly humble about it, and I appreciate all the work he's done for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we have to recognize when we're standing on the shoulders of giants. It's Richard and Hexologist and Steph who were really instrumental for me in appreciating what a TShare is. And of course, Steph is the one who came up with the gamification of Hex leagues, which is pretty legendary and caused a lot of people to wise up. And then, he's also going to be responsible in a large part for thousands of hexagons getting a airdrop from Gnosis Safe, which you got to be careful out there and make sure you're not trading fake Gnosis Safe tokens because there are scammers out there. But
I was going to ask if it'll be safe.
It's a wild west out there for sure. For sure. I mean, I almost got tricked at first glance. And although I was operating with a test wallet as usual because I'm very cautious when I'm dealing with things in the first place, it's like you never stop learning about security, and that's another reason to have time pays me work out. I think is this whole idea that when you create a buffer time between when basically currently in crypto, if you have the private keys to something, you can move the funds immediately anywhere you want. Like that's kind of bad from a security perspective. And so as I continue to go through the iterations of explaining what time pays me is really doing and trying to make it simple and powerful for people to understand, I'll probably go through. I've got some like really good analogies that I'm saving for when I go on like Hexo's show coming up on Saturday and stuff. But yeah, it's like it makes a lot of sense to even lock yourself down for a week if you know that having a pre-selected recovery address would give you the flexibility to not give up permission to somebody else until you get hacked or suspect that you're hacked. And then, you have the power to say, well, the hacker doesn't really have full permission just because they have my private key, because I put these extra protections in place. So,
Don't get hacked.
yeah, part of improving crypto and making it suitable for the masses is going to come down to making it harder for people to get hacked, making crypto more secure. Let's talk about that as one of the first principles. Like literally cryptography was created in order to have not only censorship resistance and self-custody, but also to have privacy and security as well.
Right.
Don't forget about those. I really like this take by DB Cooper, who says, I'm completely stoic and indifferent towards Zen. I created a bunch of wallets and minted and could care less. If it works out, great. If not, whatever. And then of course, Rothko and Bitfinesse, they had different takes. They said if you're going to take shots at the king, you better not miss. And Rothko said, the co-founders of Google must have sent their boy to take out the king. Better luck next time, nerds. That's fun. And then Mel Tony consistently reporting the price for over a year here in the chat. Thank you for that. And you're saying that the price of HEX is sitting at about 3.2 cents. Should I? Yeah, maybe I can preview a little bit of the alpha that I'm going to drop like when I go onto these other people's channels. I don't think people realize not only is HEX pre-viral as defined by, even let's compare it to Zen, right? Like Zen, well, that's got a bunch of bot wallets. I mean, just compare HEX to anything and it's, the people who are in it, who are really in it to win it, are staked for long term. And that is kind of a higher barrier to entry for most people, but that's okay. That we've consistently and organically grown without the help of these centralized entities that are getting crypto all wrong in the first place. But I don't think people realize like how early we are just in terms of how much HEX is paying out and how rare TShares are going to be in the future. So like if we think about like Bitcoin did pretty well even when it was in a high inflation phase. I mean, this is like the cool thing about HEX is like HEX is in a high inflation phase, in my opinion, because if we look at the number of user controlled coins, it's compared to like how much inflation is getting paid out compared to how much people have staked and how much people have just even sitting there in liquid. What we see is like HEX is paying out like from my estimation, which could be it could be off, but not by like hundreds of percents, maybe like tens of percents. I could be off, but like from what I'm seeing, it seems like people are making about 30% APY. Like literally, even if I take out all the OA coins and everything, like just comparing the amount of HEX that you had, the amount of HEX that's being minted from inflation into the supply versus the amount that's time locked and the amount that's just sitting there liquid. It's like there's the inflation is actually pretty high if you look at those like perspectives. And we've still been doing really well when it comes to price chart. And it means that there's still a huge amount of opportunity for everybody. And
There is.
and so, yeah, just it struck me recently that just the fact that you can have your TShares now and still, you know, you can still get HEX for 3 cents. Whereas if it wasn't paying out so well to the people who got in early, then it would be a much higher price, actually.
It would be. I was looking at what it would take to buy a shark right now. It's a lot. It's a lot.
A long-term shark or a short-term shark?
Long-term. Well, either's a lot. I'll tell you what it is. Hold on. If we look at the Ethereum chain, it would be, if you straight up wanted to just buy your way in, it's about $8 million right now. And that's a short ladder. Long ladder, about 2.6 million. So I would, yeah, well, that's it. Let me break that out. I've got it on the kitchen table. We'll get started.
So to be in the top 150 wallets in a coin is only $2.5 million.
Yeah, I think we should actually market that. Somebody check my math, but yeah, I think that's what it is.
So it's like I was just doing
that's to get to the 10,000 threshold. Okay, 10,000.
Get to 10,000 TShares.
Yeah. So it's not the biggest shark that's out there, of course, and there's a wide variety, but
I think you need like 80 million HEX.
Yeah, it's
let me ask Wolfram Alpha.
At the TShare rate of 24,288, you would need, for just, if you're going to just go straight up and do it like short, 242 million. But Quattrocinco would be a third of that, so about 80 million HEX. So likely somewhere in the middle between that, if you're doing actual ladder.
Yeah, I'm seeing that you're off by a decimal point, so it's actually 26 million to be a shark.
Maybe.
Yeah, and so it's, yeah, that sounds right.
Let me see. Okay. I'll trust you. I'll check my math, but I trust you for now.
Yeah. So you know, it's not that cheap to be a shark, and but definitely to be, I mean, to even to be in the top 1,000 wallets, well, the top like 1,200, we could say, is yeah, I mean, that would be where you're at about the $2.5 million mark. And don't forget that like in Bitcoin, pretty much the top 2,000 addresses are considered whales. And so as the HEX system matures, if people still are having as much of a share of the TShares as they do now, and they're in the top 2,000, then eventually someday, you know, you might be rebranded as a whale, even if basically because of like the adjusting for the OA controlling a certain percentage of the TShares, which is, I can't remember. I did the math. I've got it somewhere, but yeah, that's the good news, is that you know, people's ranks are actually probably much higher than they seem because of the OA having 16% of the TShares or whatever.
Jerry's funny. But yeah, I had that thought. I was like, I should try to upgrade to the next league, but not happening. Not in this lifetime. Maybe on a different chain. We'll see.
Yeah, or just kind of maintaining or increasing TShares at any level seems to be a good long-term move for people. I know for me, I have I have some random wallets that I've set up for people, and I've been managing, and you know the airdrops. I mean, like it's it's insane. It's like I was looking at a wallet that had $50 worth of HEX the day before big payday, staked, Quattro Cinco.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That wallet has gotten airdropped like $600 worth of coins. So,
If only you could predict that. But
I,
wait, we did.
oh, that's right. Yeah. I
We
told
did.
everybody to make a bunch of wallets, and yeah, that's what I did. Um, and so, I mean, so the take that I've been taking recently is like, I would rather decrease my exposure to things that have been airdropped to me to pay tribute to Hex, basically. Like Hex is the thing that got me this airdrop in these other wallets. Like if I'm doing anything with those airdrops, I should probably be buying a Hex, with them.
Absolutely. That's what I do. I've stuck to that pretty strongly, pretty closely. That what comes from airdrops, I eventually swap some way, some shape back into Hex. But I probably won't be able to do that 100% forever, right? But that's been my approach.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So somebody's asking, so my project that was originally called Smart Vault Me has been rebranded to Time Pays Me. And the whole idea there, well, it's a lot of ideas in one. Basically, it gives you the ability to time lock any ERC or PRC20 token, and you can lock basically you can lock any amount of time under 30 years. And the way most people can think of it is whenever you go to take money out, you're going to be waiting a week because of the security features that you enabled when you set up the smart contract. So you hold your own keys, and you go to our smart contract actually is a factory of it's a smart contract factory where you go and you create, basically you, by clicking the buttons, you're creating your own smart contract, and that is the vault that you'll be using. And you can time lock, like you can have multiple stakes for even the same cryptocurrency. And I think where it's really going to take off at first is going to be for PulseChain and PulseX tokens, especially because we want to see if we can make it compatible with other forms of earning yield, such as voting for a validator, or if there's a single-sided staking thing where you don't have impermanent loss, that would also be a possibility of, if the coins don't have to move, then there might be a way for the blockchain to tell the different smart contracts that are involved, hey, these coins didn't move. Anybody who wants to reward that person can. And we might even make a standard for that, in fact, which I'll talk more about in the future. And definitely, if you want to know like all the inside stuff and be the most informed, you're going to go to my Telegram, t.me/smartvaultme. And I've said I'm going to stop promoting it and switch to the Time Pays Me Telegram once the first 1,000 people are in a smart vault me. Right now there's like 950. So if you want to be one of the 1,000 people who's the founding member of that Telegram and have a higher signal to noise ratio, then go ahead and get in there now. Probably the most exciting thing about Time Pays Me for some people is going to be being able to reverse a hack. And the way that you do that is because even if somebody else has your private key for your hot wallet that you used to set up the vault, there's a clever way that we made for people to basically be notified if somebody's trying to withdraw and you're not the one doing the withdraw. And so in that case, you would be able to divert the funds away from the hacker to a pre-selected recovery address. So either your own cold storage wallet that you set up and you put in the public address for, or a family member or friend, could be your recovery person. And so so that's a major feature. Of course, another major feature is being able to drip out all of your coins continuously over time. And so you can imagine somebody who's setting up a year-long time lock and they serve 1 week. Well, 1 week is about 2% of a year. So you'd be able to withdraw about 2% of your coins every single week. Now, when I presented this to the community in the beginning, everybody told me, hey, wouldn't it be great if you added an incentive? And I didn't want to make like an inflationary token to duct tape onto this thing, but something much better ended up coming along in the creative process. Was I started looking at how well the emergency end stake penalty has paid out to hexagons. And that's when I discovered that there's this incredible relationship between like a low fee that's paid when you're thinking about the amount based on the principal versus how when a coin does a 1,000 or a 10,000x, that that amount that the person might be happy to pay, 1% of their principal, that can become a giant incentive for people to keep their coins locked. And so that's when I came up with the idea of, when you are using Time Pays Me, what you're signing up for is there's always a 10% temptation that is available to you, like a one-time thing. So you can withdraw 10% of your coins outside of the drip at any time. But if you borrow from your future self, then you're going to pay a penalty of 10% of the 10%. So that's 1% of your principal. And where does that money go? Well, 0.1% of the principal goes to me and my team because we're going to have expenses, and 0.9% of the principal goes to everybody who kept their 10% time locked. And all of the bonuses that becomes gets paid out at the end of somebody's time lock. And so it doesn't seem like that would be very much money if it's only like a 1% fee. But it turns out that in HEX and in the emergency end stake penalty, that it's been super profitable. It's way more than I would have imagined how valuable that's been for people to be able to collect. And so I'll be able to share the numbers on that. But the cool thing about the person who's using the system of Time Pays Me is, if you're the person who takes their 10% out early, maybe because the price pumped, like, you can also think about how valuable it was to be a part of the system, because the people you're paying are the people who are time locking and holding up the price for you. And so there's it's very valuable, even if you feel good about paying a fee to the people who are time locking and holding up the price for you, making the coin more scarce so that you can get a better price when you sell it presumably on the market. But then what happens is that 10% that you borrowed from your future self immediately starts getting paid back by your drip over basically half of your drip goes to pay back the 10%, and the other half of your drip keeps getting paid out to you. And so you have kind of like, two immediate downsides to taking the 10% loan from your future self, basically, until it gets paid back over time. And the amount of time it takes to pay back like a 10% loan is at 50% of your drip is going to be about 20% of the time that you're time locked in. So it's a really good mechanism for people to learn how to keep their how to keep their incentives straight. But if you use time pays me and you never take the 10% temptation, then there's zero cost to you for using the system. And you might be getting paid out a major amount compared to your principal based on other people being able to take their 10% out pretty much a maximum of like 4 times. If you look at how the drip is just how the drip pays you back, how you pay yourself back with the drip. So it could be a situation where people end up generating way more fees than even the emergency end stake penalties have been, which at the peak of the bull market on day 656 of HEX, compared to your principal, just the emergency end stake penalties were like probably at least like a 9 or 10x over your principal. So that's huge. And if you model that out over time, you'll see that it gets really nuts the farther out you go. I mean, we're only 3 years into HEX. And if you model that out 15 years or 30 years, what you'll see with that same data, even with something that it might be a less used fee in the case of emergency end stake and time pays me, it might be the early payday, as I'm calling it, like might be used more often. I mean, just in HEX, if you gave away all your emergency end stake penalties over 15 years, you might be giving away the same amount of HEX as you put in with your principal because of how deflationary TShares are. And I can show the math of that whenever I clean up my spreadsheet a little bit. So once people really get a better understanding of how valuable emergency end stake penalties have been, I think that even if only 50% of people in PulseChain or PulseX are participating, well, I should say of coins are participating, I think that you could see a situation where over 15 or 30 years, people are getting diluted even, 50% if they aren't participating in the system. And so that creates a really strong incentive for people to do the thing that gives you the most APY if something catches on, which is the time locking. That's where the real value comes from, is when you can hold through the 1000x and 100,000x and millionx gains that are possible in crypto. And so that it'll be really interesting to see how people respond to that. But it's been interesting, like launching it and getting everybody's attention and saying that there's no incentive, and then now that there is, it's like I have to update everybody. Chrispy, what are your thoughts?
On which part? The wishing my bags didn't pump?
Just
Or
on
something else?
my whole rant about somebody asking about time pays me and me.
Yeah,
Big
we
rants on that.
had a few moments to talk about that. I think that anytime people enter into a contract, quote unquote, they enter into whatever agreement or promise they're going to do something, and they have a penalty, yeah, you're going to see that split. I know you had done the numbers on that. And I don't know what they are, but I'm pretty sure you probably get them pretty close. Yeah, it's a lot, man. I mean, we got like I was shocked number wise just the amount of penalties when you sit down and look at them that we've had this year in total. And I don't want to give out any erroneous information, but hundreds of millions of hex, you know. Um, and it always makes me think that we need to have all the different types of people in the game, you know, without belaboring a lot of talk about it. But we need to have the stakers, we need to have the LP guys and ladies, we need to have the the people who are trying to scalp trade and the traders, because that's what makes it a, you know, a well-rounded community. But
Mhm.
clearly for me, just talking about myself, it was a lot better to be locked, man. Anyways, that's just my thought on it. And so it all resonates with me, because if you give people a chance to do that and they want to practice that, you know, it won't be everybody, it'll be some people, you know.
What was your impression of, just off the top of your head, what did you say millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions?
What in terms of penalties?
Yeah.
Oh, it's been hundreds of millions this year.
Yeah, yeah, and since inception, it's been 2.18 billion hex
Hmm.
been
I
paid
believe
out
very believable.
from penalties, which is only it's only about 4% compared to the payout since the start when it comes to inflation and all that. But yeah, yeah, it's the numbers I think are, I mean, they shocked me. So I hope that other people are also very interested by that, because I think it's definitely, it's a new area where I'm starting to realize great potential.
Well, the foundation effects of hex is staking, right? That's the purpose. That's how you're able to generate the yield. That's how the whole thing comes together. And as advertised, it rewards stakers more in
Mhm.
general, without, we don't talk about price appreciation, but it rewards you in general by not diluting you, right? I mean, and that's not even
Yes.
in general, you're not diluted. And I can tell you, because I look at I'm a little fanatical, right? So I look at my numbers a lot, probably more than I
Mhm.
want to. But let me tell you that, you know, we go back up to, which I think we will, we go back up to the 30-40 cent level. I got a boatload more hex now than I had when it was last time it was there, last round trip. And that's because I am staked, I'm getting yield, right? Now, I don't deny that there was a game to play, which I did not play, which is get lots and lots of liquid hex and wait for price appreciation and try to sell it at the right time, right? And in retrospect, I sometimes wonder if that might have been a choice for me, but it wasn't. So try not to dwell on that. But
Yeah. Yeah, it's um this isn't our first bear market. Um and I certainly wasn't as tuned in back in 2017, thankfully, with other stuff. But then, because I was all in Bitcoin back then, and then, I made my journey to try to learn about new things, and got mixed up with some things that became pretty successful. Maybe had like, I had like pretty much like maybe 2 out of 4 of the altcoins that I put more than $100 into. Um, Ended up doing super well. Wimblecoin and Hex were both, I think, given free to Bitcoin holders, or were kind of presented to Bitcoin maxis at the time. I wouldn't say Quant King fell apart pretty quick. We did a whole year together.
it was
Like,
long. Yeah.
um, Russ is calling the end of the bear market.
Yeah, I saw that. I like that. Hey, listen, I'm watching it too. I'm expecting we can't confirm for a few months, but it looks like we're getting close. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was interesting for people who didn't see the stream with Hexologist and Richard Hart. Definitely go check that out. Was about 2.5 hours and a lot of really good stuff. I think there
Well,
were some hints that PulseChain and the bottom of the bear market could be kind of 6 weeks away, although that wasn't explicitly stated at all. And I have no idea when PulseChain is coming out, and it doesn't sound like Richard has a final date either because it's not done yet. And you know, it seems like also people are making a pretty big deal about the fact that Richard was explaining that it's going to be a fork of ETH 2.0 and not a fork of Binance Smart Chain. And so that's I think that is that's good news. I think that having compatibility with future innovations in Ethereum when it comes to sharding and just the compatibility between what's built on Ethereum and what is being copied over into PulseChain, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's it's my understanding based on publicly shared information as well that just because we're copying certain things about PulseChain, just because we're copying certain things from ETH 2.0 doesn't mean that we won't be improving it as has been discussed. For example, you're not going to necessarily have to have 32 ETH, right, on PulseChain in order to vote for a validator. And even so, and then even how validator rotation goes, I would probably say, in my understanding, which is not comprehensive, it would be probably closer to how it's working on testnet than it would be even on Ethereum 2.0, is what we're going to see on PulseChain. But the fact that that Richard did announce we're definitely going with ETH 2.0 at least brings clarity to people about which system state's being copied in my mind, although that wasn't explicitly stated. I got more certainty from that as well because Richard said that he isn't really keeping close tabs on HEX on these different proof of work chains,
right.
Ethereum W and Ethereum Fair. And so that also, is noteworthy based on how I've been covering it, and doesn't necessarily invalidate a lot of the education that I did with the community, which was more in depth than what Richard said that he was going to get into.
I think I was just make a comment real quick. So Richard suggested that we might be 4 to 6 weeks out from from a bottom if things happen like they have before. We all know you just have to keep an open mind that it could happen that way. Anyways, one of the things you can watch for that are your moving averages. And we are beginning to pull up on the shorter moving averages on, Hex is leading ETH and ETH is leading Bitcoin. And so, it's possible we might see 4 or 5 weeks that we finally hit a bottom and then go. But so just comment on that.
Yeah. I mean, my take is that we're I don't have as much market experience as Richard does. I would, and I'm not trying to time the bottom either, and my bottom call doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, I already did what I'm going to do. I'm not trying to catch the knife.
But from what I'm seeing is that might be the minimum amount of time before we see a macro bottom. And I also liked how Richard acknowledged that, Hex has the ability to be decorrelated with the macro environment. And so that we saw that in the early days that there was little correlation, and then now there's more. And so less is still in the cards. Just because something becomes correlated doesn't mean it can't change, just like it changed from being decorrelated to being more correlated. And so,
Yeah, and it's a
yeah.
range, right? Well, the other thing too is, so yeah, like what does bottom mean to me? Bottom just means to me that we're making progress, right? Getting further out of this. Sooner the better for me, but it is what it is. It's one of the things you got to practice, right? Going through. But I'll tell you, there is a point though. When I do believe that the bottom is in, I will crank up my DCA, specifically into Ethereum, with the idea of ensuring I will have enough Ethereum for two purposes. One, to capture a little bit of the price appreciation, but mostly to be able to end stake all of my stakes in the future. Because there's no better time than at the bottom to be DCing. And I'm not advocating that's the investment, but I need Ethereum. Now, the only other thing,
That's a cool play.
the only other thing to do would be to buy HEX and swap it into Ethereum, right? But then I need Ethereum to swap it into HEX. So I'm going to need some Ethereum one way or another, maybe a little bit. But if you're looking for upwards movement DCA, that's probably the time is about when it gets, confirmed.
It's really funny because I was saying on Quant Gang, even on the way up in Ethereum, when I was starting to realize that I didn't like Ethereum so much when it was $2,000, and then I started calling for like 600, because that seemed to me to be the time where like Ethereum went, just to me personally, where it went from being like cheap, right? Because we were buying it for like $90 when Hex launched. So like that's when it became expensive to me. It was like around the $600 mark. And so it's funny because like I haven't seen a lot of people make like calls about $600 now as a potential bottom for ETH. I mean, and it's weird because I'm not sure if all the money printing would actually give it a higher floor or not, because I've kind of heard both arguments, but it's it's just really really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. I mean, you can just look at the charts and see where you have the greatest volumes and kind of figure it out. It's kind of hard to imagine it breaking down, below the 600 level, but certainly possible. But it might, I'm not a TA guy, right? So it's really, do I believe it's possible? Anything's possible in crypto, man. We get a wick down to what, 50, was it 56,000 today on Bitcoin? Yeah, if you're on the right exchange. So
Oh yeah.
I mean, anything can happen, right? So yeah, we could see those numbers, we could not see those numbers, but it's not so much about the exact numbers, it's about what it's doing, what the trend. It's really the trend.
See, a lot of people are saying that the OI needs to burn their tokens, but they're not saying why. So it's hard to argue with no.
Well, you guys get them on. You get the OA on the stream, and we'll talk to him about it. If you get his number, let us know.
Sure. I mean, but that's not even necessary. All I'm looking for is like a good argument, a good counter argument. Like and maybe I'm so far behind in the comments that maybe we weren't finished like listing all the reasons. Maybe I should sit down and write out all the reasons and then present it to people so it comes out a little bit more polished and it's not so off the top of the head. But yeah, I mean, like it is it is something that I think it's important for people to understand, because otherwise they could get the wrong FUD. Like, part of the whole reason why I care about being a crypto broadcaster is because people were there for me who I learned to trust even when I was in Bitcoin and it was going down. Like, I was able to hold on because there were people out there standing up for it when other people were saying untrue or mean things about it.
Mhm.
And so to have people be able to defend what works and why it works and explain it, for people so that they can explain it to others, I think that's really important. And I think, like somebody saying, "What's up, Pulse Orca?" Saying that RH could buy the price up to $1 in one market buy, but how long would it stay at $1? Like, and it depends on the circumstances of the pump and everything, but really,
Doesn't seem useful.
yeah, like, it doesn't seem very useful, because it would only reward the people who were so short-term minded that they were already willing to sell their HEX. So if somebody wants to sell their HEX for 3 cents, why would you give them $1? It just, that would just create more short-term speculators who would all come in and hold liquid coins. And then when the price does naturally, organically move up another 1x or 2x or 10x, then all those people are going to create more sell pressure. So it's better to have people with expectations that it's only, it's only by your own delayed gratification and your own educating of others about why you think HEX is good for you or good for them that you would really see more adoption and more natural price appreciation that's more sustainable.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's kind of the key thought there, right? I mean, even if you were benevolent, you yourself, you win the lottery, and you say, "I'm gonna push the price up." So you take your single lottery prize of $10 million and go pump it up. How long is it gonna take before that's eaten away? Because all the folks will just sell against it. So that's not a good market structure probably, right, to sustain it. There has to be other things. There might be a different way you can enter and help affect a positive price change with it, but otherwise it'll just melt away. Um, so I don't think the answer necessarily is just dump money in. Um, I think it always comes back to the same things we go back and forth about. We need to continue to build adoption. We need to
Mm.
continue to build use, and with use and adoption, you'll have the network effect. That's really how we'll get there. And then, of course, the outside factors of economics, etc., do affect it. But
Another thing is, like, people worrying that the OA is going to dump, like, are the same people who are worried that miners are going to create a double spend transaction on a chain that has a majority, like a far majority of the hash rate. You would think that, because why would you ever trust a bunch of strangers on the internet that are anonymous relatively? Like, why would you ever trust them to keep a list of honest transactions? Why would you ever trust them with keeping a ledger? And that's why Bitcoin did a 6 million X, is because so many people didn't understand how valuable that could be
right.
when you solve the problem of trust. And when you read the Bitcoin white paper, and when you pretend to know about the true first principles of crypto, it seems like really valuable to have, um, to basically to have an understanding that the OA, why would the OA kill its own bag? That would just be like a miner allowing a double spend and then getting caught by everybody and making, and even if they've done something that can't be fixed, which, like, social consensus has already shown us that things can be fixed in a lot of ways that are unfixable if there's not a good rationale and, like, a fair rationale. But yeah, I mean, like, if the OA dumped, like either that would create an awesome buying opportunity for people, but I don't even, that would be like saying if somebody double spent and like created 8 billion extra Bitcoin, that like that would be a buying opportunity. No, it would get corrected by the social consensus in a way. If it was malicious, if it was done in a responsible way, if it was done like with over the counter trades, then that would be a big difference. If it was done with like liquidity, that would be a big difference. There are a lot of positive ways that the OA could behave that we would predict based on game theory, because we know that Bitcoin created trust even when there shouldn't have been any, because of the incentives aligning. And so with the OA, you should look at it the same way, that when the incentives align, that basically that the OA massively selling would be a major problem for HEX. Well, that's part of the reason why you'd expect that it wouldn't happen so suddenly, and that the OA would act in the best interest of the system in order to protect itself. That's a major takeaway, I would say.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, this all kind of weird discussion. The OA exists, so let's move on. I mean, in my head, that's how I think about it. It's not like it's going to cease to exist.
Yeah, and there's no reason to be afraid of the OA when you really understand how crypto works and how decentralized trust works, and centralized responsibility. It's it's really exciting to be free of that FUD. It's a sigh of relief when you realize that that the coins that the OA is selling, like the OA could only get what, $10 million. There's only $10 million of liquidity. So it's like, it's that's not an incentive for the OA to dump anything, because they would only get like, it's important to remember the facts.
It is. So I like that last comment's a good comment, because I do think, and again,
Which one?
people, that previous one about
Super?
for the small, no, for the little guys, right?
Oh yeah.
So I mean, Hex, if people can remember or go back and look at the videos, you will clearly hear the message that this was meant to be for the people. It was for us. I mean,
Which coin?
Hex.
Hex.
Richard's whole idea was, this is again me kind of translating what I heard, was, hey, I'm going to put this thing together so people have a reasonable, real chance to become the whale. Now, he didn't use the whale idea back then, but to become wealthy in crypto, and that's been something that's been consistent, and messaging and as well as action. Now, everything might not have worked out exactly as planned. Maybe things could have been better, et cetera, but they are what they are. I mean, the contract's been done for a long time. You're coming up on the 3-year anniversary, right? Anyways, I like the comment, because I think a lot of people that come in don't understand that it really was for you that it was made.
Yeah. I mean, my initial investment in HEX that probably put me barely in the top 1,000 wallets was like $2,000 or $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so, and then if you look at like the history of Bitcoin and you look at like where we are in the history of HEX, you can see that just because somebody got in early doesn't mean that we're not still early necessarily. Like we could still be very early. And I would argue, based on my deep dive of like the HEX user controlled inflation, like we are doing way better than it seems. When we go sideways, or even when we go down from an all-time high, from a local all-time high, that doesn't mean that T-shares aren't getting more scarce. And Chrispy made one of the best tools in existence, probably the best tool in existence for appreciating how the T-share game is going to look in the future. And when I start to model out, even bring up my spreadsheet here, I was just trying to use kind of some of your numbers to try to look in the future and see what a starting T-share might be worth, or even a T-share now, what it might be worth in terms of penalties and interest and the deflationary nature of T-shares that all multiplies against each other in a really awesome way. Here we go. Here's my spreadsheet. And I was, when I do the moon math these days, like I prefer to use the most conservative numbers because that's all it takes.
I actually asked a bunch of people on Twitter and elsewhere about their thoughts about me posting up the thing, because it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, okay, everybody here is not going to go look. Probably 20% maybe go look at it. And of that, maybe half of them don't get to it. But you still got that 5 or 10% that you can scare the hell out of when they go look at information like that. But in fact, I think you voted on that poll, one of the polls like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just asking, hey, should we post this stuff? And freedom of information, that's why we have it. But yeah, it's scary, man.
Well, I remember in the first online HEX conference that when I saw Abin and Patrick model this data out for the first time, I'm not even sure what method they used, but that changed my staking behavior. And then drilling into your data, which is more based on a lot more information. What I'm seeing is I was modeling every 1,034 days because that's where I was taking a measurement of how much emergency end stake penalties have been paid out so far. So we're already maybe a week or two past day 1034. But when I take how many T-shares, how much the total T-share supply deflated, even from day 656, which was the all-time high, to day 1034, it's about 500,000 T-shares got taken out, which it was going from 11 million to 10.5 million. If we model that out into the future, another 1,034 days, that gets us to only 8.8 million T-shares in 2025. And then it just really starts to take off. Let me make sure I have my legend here. So then in 2028, you got 7.2 million. And then in 2031, you have 5.6 million. In 2034, which is as far out as the T-share price was showing on hexfire.io, we're looking at, now we're 15 years into HEX, and there's only 4 million T-shares in existence. And it continues to go down from there, like significantly. And taking that 2034 estimate as well, even on the conservative side of things on Hexfire, the lowest number, there was still a wild guess, but like the lowest number was showing that the price for one T-share could be all the way up to 116,000 HEX per T-share at that time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it's like, and that's small. That's like a 5x from here, and it'll be somewhere in between with adoption for sure. So, yeah, because and what's really interesting too, mathematics wise, a lot of these numbers, when you go through and do the calculations you project, in 10 years, it's likely that the T-share rate will be 10x if we continue to grow as we have been growing over time. And I don't mean in price, I just mean in adoption. So
Uh-huh.
if, rough numbers. So we go to a few million users over time and et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, yeah, we could be that in 15 years, we're looking at 250,000 HEX TShares, right?
Wow.
And so that's kind of like crazy. It's mind boggling, you know, so try to even get your head around that. I don't know how much value there is in that other than what you said is okay. We have ranges and we say maybe it's from 110,000 to 270,000, but they ain't getting cheaper. So in terms of hex, so get them now. I mean, I think that's the answer.
Yeah.
Is get them now. Whichever your preferred method of getting them is, get them now. Because it's just going to be harder and more expensive to get them later.
Yeah. And yeah, that's it's very valuable information. So yeah, I'm gonna keep thanking you for many years to come for what you've made available to us. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Manny. I mean, and that was the whole purpose. And I didn't do all this myself, all of it myself. I got some help from a lot of members in the community. Um, and we took, specifically one of the guys I worked with is this guy Hopper out on Twitter. I think I've mentioned him before. And one of the things I don't think I even talked to you about is we did take the Hopper multiple and kind of project out what the payouts will be as
Okay.
well. So there is a payout page out there that you can go look at and see, but that is also as ridiculous, right? And particularly the way it looks when you look at the long time frame. Just showing, hey, in that same 15-year time frame, we'll probably be above the 20 hex per day payout. So per t-shirt.
Wow.
Uh, so, but all of that is great to know, right? So we know about it. We know that it's possible. So it's good to have that kind of encouragement, right? But whether it's 100, 1,000, or 99,000 when you get there, I don't know. Does it really matter? It's more about magnitude, about the direction it's going to go, in the form it'll take as it gets there, because it's mathematical, right? So not like something different is going to surprise you. It's going to be the math, and you're going to be able to know in advance, and so we can predict really well what things are going to look like in a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple months. Less so the further out you go, and so we know what's happening with the system, and I think that's a really strong positive for people. When we're doing onboarding.
Okay. I am trying to summarize what I've heard the community say about Zen. I don't see myself promoting Zen. I think that I'm asking the right questions and being, if anything, overly critical. So whoever is lying and saying that, yes, I'm promoting Zen, you need to watch yourself. There's a lot of fudders here in the chat that I'm like allowing to you know,
You always need a few hecklers, man.
yeah. Like, but you need to be careful about making blanket statements. Yeah, so K4K did a video. Let's see. Oh, thank you for the super chat. The guy who minted Zen obviously cares, or he would not have minted it at all. Nobody cares. If you care, let people mint what they want. Yeah. Yeah, so that's one of the takes that I covered earlier. Why do hex streamers stream over each other? Because we are a decentralized community, and because people like watching things on replay, and because I think people don't always realize.
JSOL.
Get your TShares now, understand them later. That's what tshare.app is designed for.
That is so funny. Yeah, you talk to two people you're trying to onboard with staking, and once you get done with the discussion, one person pushes the button, the other one's staring at the screen trying to figure out if they should push the button,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, it's
I
information
concur.
overload for sure. Yeah.
I concur.
Um,
Yeah, that Cantillon effect is real.
and if I had to guess, like who's streaming now, I think I saw Dollar Cost Crypto was going to stream maybe with Funding Gym, which is cool. Like I'm super cool with both those guys. And sometimes Whales and Cream have been streaming on Tuesday nights, which it's like, you know, the three of us used to stream every Tuesday night, so can't feel bad about that. It's like a segmented reunion or something. He doesn't care about the price. Okay. Yeah. See, like if you guys are making good points in the chat, like I'm going to point them out if I see them, like, you think I'm being unbalanced, then just come in and be respectful and make good points. And I will try to rebalance. What's up, Matt in Bali? Good to see you. Jerry Oaksmith. What's up? Yeah. Hexkins forgot Hex dumped 97% in the first 6 days. Was it that much in the first 6 days? I thought the local low was like day 33 or 34, depending on whether you're using the closing price or not. But yeah, it dumped a lot. It dumped like 90% or more. Maybe it was 97%. There you go. Got Jay doing math. Hey, thanks for that. I always appreciate it. Centralized exchanges love coins that incentivize a lot of trading. Let me know when you all are going to pay my bills. All right. Stay tuned. Who's your guest? Yeah, well, Chrispy is the early hexagon and somebody who created one of the coolest tools out there in the Hex ecosystem called hexfire.io. Everybody should go check it out.
Whoop, whoop. I'm always plugging it, man. That's why I'm talking to people.
Well, you've been kind enough to come on multiple times, and I always appreciate having you as a guest because I think you're such a well-balanced voice of reason.
Well, thanks, Matty. I appreciate what you do as well. You know that.
Thank you. Yeah, see, Sideshow Bob, that's a debate for the ages that of whether the OA should stake more and do something to maybe wash out some short stakers, although the problem of short stakers works itself out naturally after a while.
It does. It does. They lose about, I think last time I looked, they lose about 10% of their TShares per year. If they consistently do it, something that kind of order of magnitude. But certainly if they're, getting 1% a month and being able to lock that in is good. And about 1%, a little bit with them, less than 1%. That's a pretty good number. That's why you have the short staking. I lost you. I don't know if it's
Sorry,
my.
going back and watching the Quant Gang streams is really easy because you can check out the playlist where by going, I think to just quantgang.com takes you to my playlist, or you can go to the YouTube page and I've like ordered them. So you can either go by the episode number, which goes from 1 to over 50, or you can check out like the order that I put them in the playlist, which might indicate which ones are the best, or you could sort by the most viewed is another really good way to see what was the most influential. Yeah, join t.me/smartvaultme. The blocks are filling up for when I'll stop promoting that and start promoting something that'll probably end up having lower signal to noise. I sound super hurt. Well, I wish you could tell me what it was I was talking about, because I disagree. Wait, who is right? For a shark? 80 million hex?
You can do the math later. You see it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I was surprised about the amount, but I don't have that.
Oh, I didn't make an error. My bad. I did 0.33 instead of 0.033. Yeah. Well, thanks for the catch there. Would have hated to have the record wrong.
Wow, Jay is awesome. So
Yeah.
hey, if we could do it, it'd be cool. We should be advertising that,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's a steal.
No shark. Yeah, because I think you can set up a ladder. You'd have to do the numbers on it. You probably set up a ladder that pays 20% APY per year for a 15-year commitment. And what is that, 500,000? That's $500,000 a year on 2.6 million. Or did I get the number wrong? Let me do that. I'll do the math to the calculator. Right, so 2.6 million, right? 20% a year. That's 500,000 per year. 520,000. So the average, so the what's in it for you is become a shark in our environment. We only have one more spot left, 2.6 million.
Yeah, the liquidity isn't that deep, so you're going to be pushing the price against yourself if too many people try to become sharks. So limited time offer, it seems, given the current conditions.
Yeah. That would mean a dolphin's about 10% of that.
Yeah.
Bring your dolphins. It's a lot of cash in the real life, obviously. Whether you're talking about 260,000 or 2.6 million, but maybe we ought to be out there recruiting dolphins.
Yeah. I can't believe it's that low.
That's the other side of the coin is that then also I don't know. You don't want to recruit more people that are going to come in and dump, right? Though I do think that stakers are sometimes identified alongside of the swing traders. A lot of times you hear people talk about the OGs. Well, for the most part, the OGs that I know all staked.
Yeah.
And so they don't have, so when you say OG, that's what I think. I think about stakers, right? But yes, there must have been, and there are people that have held liquid. And so stakers, for the most part, and you can find the examples, but I'm guessing, and I haven't done the full analysis, it ain't the stakers selling to drive the price down. That's all I'd say. Because you'd see a lot more emergency end stakes than you have already, Matty. That's for sure.
Imagine 10 million new crypto users holding ETH Zen, and they get free copies on PulseChain. Man, that is huge for HEX and PulseChain.
It's a valid point.
Good take, Ocean Breeze. Thank you.
Yeah. I didn't talk with you about it, talk to somebody else. Yeah, I mean, if you follow that idea about education and you've onboarded 10 million people, let's say that number's real, into Zen, and boy, it sure looks an awful lot like something that looks better than that in my eyes, right? HEX. And it's going to be on the PulseChain. That could be a triple win, at least a double. Here are your free tokens on PulseChain.
That's a really positive take. And I wish the founder of Zen wasn't out there bad mouthing HEX so that, I could try to believe in that more. But there's always hope,
there's always hope.
Yeah. Could reform. let's see. My observation is he could have put a delay function in so no coins could be traded the first 30 days. That is true. OA or Rackham. I'll take the OA. Thanks. Good point, Rothko. I heard somebody else say that in one of the many streams I listened to recently, and so that's
I heard that too.
a take that people are echoing. In the
On
distant
Twitter.
future, the OA could burn the coins. Maybe, but it would decrease the ways that the OA could protect the system, in my opinion. At a time when economic certainty is proven even more by the OA just doing the right thing with the coins, and by people learning to not be so lazy with like understanding why we should trust the OA is the same reason we should trust that Bitcoin isn't getting double spent, or why any of this stuff works in the first place with having crypto, having the Bitcoin white paper, like, and having the Bitcoin experiment play out for 12 years proves why you should trust the OA instead of, I'm not saying this applies to you, Jerry, but like just anybody wanting, like, you want more certainty by the OA creating a more certain economic policy, but then, like, that's a double-edged sword, because then other people are going to have more certainty and you're not going to get as good of a price. So it's kind of like some people say HEX is an IQ test. Like, you could add that to the list of like reasons why would be that it's not so simple that increased economic certainty, the increased certainty of the economic policy of the OA would just give everybody a better deal. It could be that you'd have to compete more with people who haven't looked into it as deeply, and that would not work out as well in the long term as if the system let people figure it out and let the organic education happen, and then people who get in who were still telling about it, the little people can, with bags of only $100 or $1,000 or something, that they could still become millionaires if HEX does what it's designed to do. And they keep printing the dollar into infinity. I would disagree that like putting $10 million into HEX buys like is better marketing than buying watches. I'm not sure how you'd know that. People spend millions of dollars advertising by paying Facebook and Google, and it doesn't do anything for the price. I mean, I would say that although I haven't done the chain analysis, I would say it's pretty reasonable to assume that the OA has been buying millions of dollars of HEX, if not more than that, over the years. And so, that's like when we see Richard Hart like unfollow people and like kind of stand up for himself, is definitely when people are telling him how to use his money. Like, imagine being so benevolent to have never sold a single HEX coin and then have people try to tell you how to spend the rest of your money too. Like, that's pretty too much. I mean, I think that somebody could acquire 80 million HEX without driving the price up too much. I mean, maybe they would like 4x it or something if they took like half of the supply, which is a lot. Maybe they would 2x it or something. But that's a pretty good point, I guess, Jerry, that that they would be pushing the price against themselves significantly compared to legacy markets and things with higher liquidity. And that's that could be seen as a good thing to let smaller people get in, and not just let all the big guys get in over them. Russ says, guys, if I win the Powerball, maybe I'll market buy and pump everyone's bags.
Nice.
Very generous of you. was worried of somebody getting a hold of his keys. Well, the point that I made earlier is just that somewhat like the OA has already been such a huge benefit to the system that it's worth the existential risk. It's worth having a negative externality that is, in my opinion, provably net positive for the system. You really, it's hard to do anything without having any risk associated with it. So I think that the risk is far less than the reward of having the OA. Did I miss the Zen Kitties? I think we all did. Ben Dubard is an upcoming Hex streamer. Make sure to follow his channel.
Woohoo.
Augie, what's going on? Good to see you there. Sideshow Bob, the OA is good, but public perception is really bad. If one guy owned 95% of Ethereum or Bitcoin, no one would take it seriously. That's a fair point. How do we work with that? Can't have it both ways. I mean, but it's also like saying if, 100% of the Bitcoin transactions are secured by miners, nobody would get into it because they don't understand that miners, against all rational odds, actually create trust. Like the fact that miners can create trust is pretty revolutionary. And that's the whole point of why crypto is different and important, is because you can have decentralized trust. And so even though the OA is more an example of centralized trust, it only matters to everybody because more and more people are getting involved in HEX. Like if the OA owned 100% of the coins and there wasn't a market that it was protecting, then it wouldn't matter to anybody. But the fact, and a hexologist has even said he would love it if the OA owned 99% of the coins, because then there would be less people dumping the price and his coins would be worth more. So there's there's an interesting balance there. But I think there's a difference between owning 95% and being a billionaire in something else, in other coins, being a billionaire in Bitcoin and in Ethereum and in stables creates a situation where that person is well prepared to defend the fact that they would never need to sell HEX or PulseChain or PulseX. And that creates another unique kind of situation that is worth pointing out. Good point. What's up? Give me Liberty or give me HEX. Good to see you in here. Another longtime viewer. We need PulseChain to come out already before all the degens lose all their money. Well, what do you think the sacrifice is helping us for? Like, you're not going to lose the money. Well, I don't know. That's a weird statement. Didn't everybody already get wrecked by PulseChain because they sacrificed and they don't expect anything in return? Except for the benefit of knowing that you sacrifice for freedom of speech and freedom of movement. Well, that's a complicated one. But at the end of the day, if you're one of the set of users that could get airdropped PulseChain and PulseX, I'd be pretty happy with myself for being early on something that Richard Hart did. And I wouldn't rush it, because all you're doing is disrespecting the process of getting it right.
Yeah, I think we know of at least 3 or 4 drops, right, for sacrificers.
3 or 4 what?
Airdrops for sacrificers. I
Oh,
think we
that's
already
it.
know about that. That's coming too.
Yeah. Yeah. So it won't just be PulseChain, PulseX tokens that are distributed, but lots of other things too. What's
Yeah,
up,
it's good.
Sir Edwards? Good to see you there. Lots of clowns around lately. Yeah.
Yes.
Price prediction for HEX in 2023. That's a fun question.
I don't know, man. You got to be careful with that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
We're in a
I
bear market.
yeah, but we talk about the end of 2023, right? So it wouldn't be surprising to be 10x by then. If somebody said to me, "Hey, do you think by the end of next year we might be at 30 cents?" Yeah, it's reasonable. Will we be? No idea. Maybe we'll be at 5 cents. But I'll be looking, or maybe we'll be at 20 cents. I'll be looking for the trend, but it'd be pretty reasonable that we might be back up to some sort of parity with that number.
I mean, I would I'd go back to the question and say like that's a pretty short time frame. And so maybe HEX or maybe like crypto isn't right for you if you're on that short of a time frame. Because HEX is really designed to do best for people who are more long-term minded, in my opinion, because the average stake length is over 6 years. That's the point at which you're playing the game more short-term minded than others. And so I would encourage, somebody who's asking about a price prediction for HEX in 2023 to maybe look for something
Mhm.
that is more advantageous to short-term players. But if you're still interested in HEX, then you might be asking, what's HEX going to look like in 5 years or 10 years from now, and and then have a mixture of both time locks that go out 5, 10, or 15 years. Maybe for me, if I was starting out new today, I might take 100% of my investment, and I might do 25% time locked for 15 years, 25% time locked for 10 years, 25% time locked for 5 years, and then keep 25% liquid. And that way I'd be able to sell the liquid if the price goes up a lot in the next 5 years, and then still have all those other coins waiting for me in the future.
Another take to throw at that too is if somebody was asking for next year, and then like this question. Another approach to this too is it doesn't matter where the price goes up; it just isn't going to go down. And assumption that we stick at this average price, and coming in and staking with HEX today to give yourself an end of year stake next year, it's about 14%. Right. So I don't know anywhere I can go outside of crypto where I can go invest $100. Now I would do 100, but $1,000 and earn 140 $40, right? And
Yeah.
over that year, I mean, 14% is
That's a great
14%.
APY.
Yep. And if by chance this is how I approached my ladders in the beginning. If by chance there's price appreciation, it's all gravy, all extra.
I mean that the other side of things is that crypto can go down 95% more from wherever it's at.
You can. Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why the gains can be so massive when you see them, is because that's after a period where short-term people have been shaken out of the market. So the more typically the more something dips and then has greater adoption, the more it can pump. But it all comes down to supply and demand, which is really difficult to predict when HEX is paying so well for people who time lock and people who have time locked who were able to buy at a much cheaper price. So I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to see massive volatility in the price of HEX. I wouldn't be surprised if HEX, even dip down to a penny and a half I'm not saying that I think it will. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised. And I wouldn't be surprised if Hex found its, its sideways action at less than we are now, or higher than we're at now. It's really hard to predict what everybody else is going to do, almost to the point of it being impossible. But at the end of the day, if you believe in crypto and you believe in time locking, and that Hex is valuable because so many people are incentivized to time lock, then you might take an approach where you're doing short-term and long-term strategies combined. Zen Kitties is a joke, but who knows? Maybe I'll be able to sell the thumbnail for this stream for millions of dollars.
I'll have a proposal for you after the show.
Okay. We've got a bidding war, people.
That's good. Zen Kitty. I like it. Zen Kitties. Why not?
Another thing to remember when we're talking about an environment where the gas fees have gone up is how valuable it can be to set your gas limit lower if you don't need to do any other transactions on a wallet for a certain period of time, for example. But with everything other than swaps, like you don't want to go below what MetaMask is recommending for things that are swaps, because like you don't want to manually decrease the GUI with swaps, because that ratio is only going to exist for a certain amount of time, probably seconds or minutes, because the price is going to keep changing. And so your transaction will just get thrown out or still cost you but fail if you're playing around with the swap fee. But whenever you're doing most other transactions, knowing how to hit a little bit lower of a GUI than is currently being suggested usually plays out super well for an advanced user such as myself. For example, even when I'm playing around with Zen, or when I'm minting Hedron, or even when I'm starting a hex stake, all these things I've done today, it's like I choose maybe to underbid the current, what MetaMask is suggesting, by usually about a third less. So if GUI is sitting at, if it's recommending 40, I'm going to decrease it until it tells me you're going too low. And then that's a pretty good point to be still getting the transaction run in minutes, not even hours. Now, I did get super greedy or patient, whichever one you want, with one of them, where I was doing multiple Hedron minting, and I was minting for multiple stakes. And I guess I switched it up because I went below half of what was recommended. I went down to 20 GUI, and that actually didn't hit for over a day. Well, maybe it was close to it. It was 18 hours, but it overlapped a certain day. And that's when I noticed that Hedron actually gave me everything that I should have gotten for that, instead of so basically it counted the extra day, which is kind of cool, because that tells me that it's going and asking the smart contract to mint me the amount that I'm due, not necessarily the amount that I'm asking for on the day that I made the request, if that makes any sense. So the day ticked over and I got the extra Hedron for that extra day because the transaction didn't go through for so long. So that's kind of a cool thing, that if I'm correct about how this works, and I was looking at it correctly, that if somebody was so obsessed with saving GUI and they really weren't trying to play the Hedron price at all, and they really didn't care, that you could set a GUI of 5 or 10 or something, and then just wait days and days and days for it to hit, and then it'll mint you however much Hedron you're supposed to get on that day when it hits. But yeah, so for anything, I mean, even a token approval. So I I bid a third below the recommended GUI for like even doing a swap when I was approving a token, but then I was a little bit worried about that one because I did have a couple of swaps fail when I was trying to redeem my Zen, and that made it so that those stakes became unprofitable. So it was like, losing $7 for a failed transaction is a kind of pain that you won't know until you really get involved with this stuff. And I wasn't even trying to do anything special on that one. It just sucked.
Just happened.
It just sucked. What about the short term? If you accidentally die suddenly, I mean, like if you have a lot of money in HEX, you should probably tell somebody how they would go about dealing with it. For my product, Time Pays Me, where people can time lock PulseChain and PulseX, we will have probably something built in so that you can pass on your crypto in the event that you pass away, what we're calling the dead man switch, which would be like if you don't do a transaction for a set period of time, maybe like 2 years, then it automatically goes to an address that you've pre-selected. I think people who are impatient deserve to learn the value of being patient more than they deserve the value or more than they deserve getting wrecked. And that's really what Time Pays Me, I hope, what it will cause for some people. But as you can imagine with any crypto thing, the game theory has to be flawless. And I think it is, but the market will decide. And social consensus matters a lot. If whales and sharks and dolphins are adopting it, then other people might play along too. Oh, that's a great question. So what happens to Zen supply held by centralized exchanges when PulseChain forks? If it's sitting in an automated market maker, then it would be subject to harvesting. If it's just held by the centralized exchanges, then it would get copied usually. And then there would be a demand from users, if it was valuable, for the centralized exchange to list that version of Zen. So and it's going to get really confusing because there's another token called PZen, spelled PZEN, that's on Ethereum. So get ready for that mess, because you would also call Zen on PulseChain PZen, PXEN. Or no, well, it depends who you're talking to. So like if you're talking to somebody who's a PulseChain person, they would just call it Zen because we're stealing all the tickers when we steal the system state.
Yep.
So that's going to be confusing for sure. Wasn't Ivan on Tech doing an interview with Richard? Yes.
I heard, that's what he said. I haven't heard it.
Yeah, that's what he said, but it hasn't come out yet, to my knowledge. You can't see on YouTube the one with Hexologist. Well, make sure you're following the right Hexologist channel, because he has a new YouTube from 3 years ago. I think Rackham is like the second or third biggest whale, and I also heard that he doesn't stake, so that's weird. Thank you for your service. Yeah, new longevity foundation formed from the sacrifice. Way to go, Hexicans. Great things to come. There you go. Yeah, Aubrey de Grey announced it at the Dublin conference. 2 or 3 weeks ago that he's starting his own foundation that'll work hand in hand with Sens. So that's a good resolution.
I missed that. That is good.
Yeah. And that's because of somebody who was watching this show that I called the Pulse Longevity Whale, who is in the top 10 sacrifice addresses because they gave so many millions of dollars to Sens. I think it was 10 million. And then they gave another $150,000 when I brought some of the people on who were working with Aubrey and trying to get legal funds together to like
Yeah, I remember
fight
that.
for the money to come back to Aubrey. And that was highly successful. Really cool. And I think they didn't even have to use the $150,000 necessarily to pay lawyers even more. I mean, they still paid the lawyers well, but I think that money is actually getting to go to longevity research now. But don't quote me on it. Might still be sitting on the blockchain. Yeah. Okay. So Sir Edward says, yeah, most of us OG Hexicans, we don't have any Hex. We only have TShares. And that's why the license plate for the Hex DeLorean is out of Hex. Because I'm all out of Hex. I sent it all to the future, to my future self.
Mm-hmm.
Can we buy Zen yet? Yeah, it's on Uniswap, I believe, if you plug in the right contract address and don't get scammed. But the official website is xen.network. And then you have to take the contract address from there. And now it's launched on like Binance Smart Chain. So that adds complexity to where you're looking for it. But I know the OA bought a lot of Hex, but he was the biggest seller on the entire run up because he was the biggest liquidity provider. We don't have any proof of that. I don't think the OA provided liquidity. So show me the transaction. Yeah, thanks for the content, Ben. Keep up the good work. Which wallet can I get ETH Hex? I'm not familiar with how to do swaps/stakes. Like to get Hex on the Ethereum network, you would use MetaMask wallet, metamask.io. Thanks for hitting the like. Everybody follow along. Oh yeah, so like the 38% APY thing, like I was also confused about this, why we're marketing 38% APY when like people aren't necessarily getting that.
Yes. And what did you conclude?
What I concluded was that if you're an average length staker, you might still expect to get that APY or better. And if you look backwards, a lot of people have gotten that, especially because of the, the amount that you're getting per T-share, not just from interest or yield, I guess, but also the end stake penalties. You're also getting USD price appreciation when the market is in an upturn. And so the actual ROI for a lot of people has been a lot higher on a long enough time frame. So people who are using Hex only for the short term for less than 1 year aren't really taking advantage of the ways that it was designed to give you the best APY. The best APY comes from a combination of time locking and trustless yield and US dollar price appreciation from scarcity.
It's all in the definition. It's all in the definition.
Yep.
I think you're right about that. I think so that's one version, right? The other is just straight up, right? The average APY of stakes is about 37. So it's a little shy of 38. But that doesn't mean everybody gets 38%, and that's where the definition comes in, right?
Mm.
And so we know what it takes to get higher APY. It's to go bigger and longer. And if you consider your definition along with price appreciation, yeah, it can be tremendously. I mean, just only takes one double, you're 10 times higher. But I can see the frustration for people who may not have understood the definitions, right? And they're talking to somebody and that's exactly what's happening. You look at the DESI or some of these other contracts that came out, Maximus. Clearly it's not earning 38%.
Yeah,
It's clear, right? I mean, and so you run across that people when they want to talk about that, and they're like, "What are you guys saying? This isn't," So again, you have to make sure you have the data, right? And you're talking about the right definition.
Desi is not earning 38%.
Let's go look. What's it looking like? I guess I shouldn't call one out. Maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Because you got bigger pays better, and you
Yeah,
got
but I think what's happening, Maddie, is it's more like 29%. But I'll pull it up and look at it, and you can go
hmm.
look at the numbers. Let's see. So I got. You want to look at Desi, or I'll grab the numbers for Desi
Yeah.
since I brought that one up. Of course, I don't have the APY listed here, do I? But I'm showing return on investment estimated out at 300% at the end of the 10 years. So we might have to do it manually by hand to do the numbers, or maybe somebody in the chat will do it.
300% divided by 10 is 30%.
Yeah, I guess it comes out to about that. Yeah, that's pretty close. It makes sense too because the TShares are going up, man. They keep going up in price and
Mm.
HEX, and the payouts are going up too, but not as quickly as the T-share rate.
Mm.
And we do have some additional adoption taking place that looks pretty good, particularly driven by Quattro Cinco sticks, right?
Mm.
Coming out of the Hadron and Nicosia area. So we had a little bit of shift and a kind of a bump. So yeah. Yeah, and even in a funny way, even the big stakes move the payout against themselves when they're
Yeah.
made.
And
So
the system wouldn't work if you got so much APY in HEX terms that you could buy more T-shares. The T-share price always has to be leading higher by definition, so that short stakes can't get more T-shares.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so it's designed to balance itself out and to pay longer pays better, but it's impossible to know what your APY is going to be in the future because you don't know what all the variables are going to be. But
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
why we use the average, and
It's
maybe at some
only a
point
guess.
it'll decrease.
Yeah.
So people who sacrificed and couldn't get a cold storage device and got hacked, you are going to race the hacker when PulseChain comes out, and there's new instructions on the PulseChain sacrifice checker for you to be able to do that. Let me try to drop a link. You know what? I'm not going to drop a link. Go research it yourself. Don't want to make it easy for hackers. If you've been hacked, you don't mind doing a little extra work to look up the PulseChain sacrifice checker. I don't take too many risks. I'd rather be safe than sorry. Thanks for the shout out, Maddie. My pleasure. Augie. Read Maddie's links in the description, and you'll be able to see the method that I wrote out of how I bought HEX using MetaMask. There's some good details there in my Medium article. after PulseChain launches and the coins go up in value, when you swap your PLS or PLSX out, what coin should you swap to, and how do you get to fiat money? Thanks. That's to be determined. So it really depends on like what the bridge situation is, how much you trust the bridge, and that sort of thing. So we're going to have to answer that question when PulseChain comes out. But I couldn't imagine a situation where PulseChain was existing for very many days where there wasn't a good way to get your value out, because that would defeat the purpose. And we even saw on the other Ethereum forks, like Ethereum Fair and Ethereum Proof of Work, that there were certain tokens that were accepted by centralized exchanges. So, you could get your money in and out that way through the native token. So it might be that PulseChain gets listed on an exchange that you use that can link you to your bank, or it might be that you have to trade your PulseChain on a decentralized exchange or a bridge or some other service that you may or may not trust from the get-go and that you need to do research on. But yeah, come back and ask when it's ready, and we will certainly address that. I have an ETH transaction stuck for almost 3 days, and it won't even let me advance. Send another transaction back to myself to cancel it using the same nonce. Pretty dumbfounded about it.
I hate that.
You can go to t.me/hex crypto and then do !stuck, and that should give you like a help article about it. But if people DM you, don't take their help. They are scammers.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I saw that posted earlier.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, Matt. Yeah, and that's something in the future us like really wants to build in, and I do too. We really want to build that into Time Pays Me, so that you can have a kind of a inheritance plan, and we would probably make it for a year as the minimum, because there are so many jurisdictions that cause funds to not get held up if they're not available for a year. Yeah, so to maximize your rewards, if you have 3 stakes going, would be to stake longer, depending on if you can wait that long, and spread it out otherwise. So basically creating a staking ladder. There are really, really good videos that I can refer you to that explain HEX 3 times in 10 minutes in 3 different videos. And it's a playlist on my YouTube page called What is HEX? So that'll give you a breakdown of like what the value of time locking longer is, and why it's rewarding, and that sort of thing. Yeah, I think that there will be multiple longevity conferences each year, and I'll keep people updated on my channels whenever I go to one. There was an online one that I recorded, and Richard stopped by, and I ran into Aubrey DeGray, and it was really fun. So if you look back on my YouTube channel, you can also see I broadcast it twice, because they did 2 sessions about maybe 6 months ago or something. So you can attend the digital one where I went around and talked to a bunch of scientists and stuff. Come on, Matt, Richard was the biggest liquidity provider the entire run up. He made a big deal about switching from the ETH pair to the USDC pairing. I don't think that didn't suggest to me that he was providing liquidity. That was like him starting to explain Hart's law and trying to recommend that people who were providing liquidity could make HEX less correlated in preparation for the bear market. And I certainly appreciate that. But yeah, I mean,
He did.
you could do chain analysis and you could show us but if you're just speculating based on his public comments, I wouldn't make the same conclusion that you're making. But I'm not certain. Like I have not myself done the chain analysis on the 2000 OA wallets. So I should qualify that.
Hmm. Gonna have to work on that. Yeah, here's a cool thing about that percentage. I know that's what we're seeing for APY projected right now, but I do think that if we see the payout increase over time, that it will likely be more than the 29 to 30%. So
I seem to remember when I was deciding whether to stake or not, or when I started doing test stakes, I think the APY in the first 2 or 3 months of HEX, even for long stakes, was like 10% or something. It was something very pitiful.
yeah, it was low. Well, Hex Daily Stats has it
So
as well.
it can
You
go
know,
up and down. Like those stakes are now sitting at 70% APY or something crazy.
yeah. Well, APY, if you go back in, first couple days, it was only running about 5%.
Yeah.
And never say never, right? Because we could be back there again. I'm not saying that's what we'll do, but I mean, it's very possible, right? So anything can happen. But we ran 4% or so. I had some big days with people doing the emergency end stakes and stuff. We didn't start really getting into the tens until good 5 months in. And then it did keep going up all the way to big payday.
So the answer is really that it is dynamic and it can go up and down. And you only really know after the day's been completed what the payout per T-share was that day. To answer
Yeah.
Augie's great question here, if HEX goes up to say 10 cents, will the staking rewards increase as well? Because the rewards are paid in HEX. If HEX is more
Automatic.
valuable when your stake comes out, then it's like you were getting paid more every single day that you were accruing HEX, which is a beautiful part of the system.
Yeah. Yep. And to your previous comment, Maddie, after big paydays when we started hitting the 38%.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, migrating a MetaMask to a Trezor will only help before you're hacked, right? You won't always know. So, you might migrate anyway, and then definitely have a separate Trezor that's set up. It doesn't have to be a separate device. It just has to be a separate. You can only load one pair of seed words at a time, and you would need to really make sure that you have a separate, fresh seed word that's generated by the Trezor itself to be using as your main wallet there. Yeah, well, go read what the Pulse. So I'm not going to say out loud what the update is on the Pulse sacrifice checker website about all that, but like there's bad news and then there's some good news. So Yeah, Ben, I really like the How to Pulse guys, but I think that they didn't do a good job of helping Hex 19. And so I would not be using them to set up a bot to race a hacker unless you found evidence that they like are more capable. Because when I was offering my chain analysis course, I used Hex 19 as an example with his permission, and I discovered that the hacker was still minting thousands of dollars of Hedron every couple of weeks. So they said that they were going to help him, and then they didn't even tell him that that was happening. So he had to find out from me that that was happening. So that seems very, and I haven't addressed it with them because it's not really my business, but if they're advertising to people that they're going to save your sacrifice, that's when I have to finally speak out. It's like, I don't think they've done a good job of that in the past. Okay, maybe you can watch on the replay what our responses were. Yeah, I mean, like, look, wouldn't it be great if I had a couple more guests that had different opinions than I did, than Chrispy did, and then, we could have more balanced discourse. I invited other people, and David was going to come on, but then he got sick. So,
I hope he feels better.
Me too. I think that my ideal show is where we have all the different opinions on at the same time for something that I think has merit that needs to be debated. And then there are other things that are just toxic discussions, and that's, best to stay away from. And there's over 120 hex channels. So if,
is there that many now?
I mean, I kept saying 120 because that's how many spots there were at the online hex conference in January. Then I went back and like double checked the math because I want to like make a new world record if that was a world record. But I think I came out with like 80 or 90. I'll have to go back and like finish my work. But yeah. And I also got Sticker Guy to volunteer to like help do an inventory. So we are going to know exactly how many channels have participated in hex conferences as we go in. We're like 3 months away from the next one.
Right. I think that comment about the hate going around and everything, I think it's very true. I don't know how we do it. And I think some people have stepped forward as kind of like thought leaders in the community.
Yeah.
I just think we're going to see more of that and need to do more of it. There's a lot of factors,
Yeah.
But I agree. Because I want to go talk about certain things, and you shouldn't be afraid to talk about things getting beat up over it, but at the same time, it'll work itself out, I think.
Yeah. And I've tried to make a point. If somebody says something in the chat and you give a reason why, then I'm trying to give it attention, read it out loud. I'm not ignoring people who make good points in the chat who like have a different conclusion than I do. And so I'm doing my best to stay open-minded. Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to you, Matt, in Bali. This has been a wild bear market for sure.
It has been wild.
If or when Hex moons again, it would make sense to pull a stake to take the immediate profits. So if it goes down, you at least have some realized gains. So so that you actually can't end a stake early without paying in some cases, a massive penalty. And so that's why I recommend
ladder.
Wait, let me back that up. that's why if I was the person starting Hex new now, that's why I would keep 25% liquid while I'm doing my first couple $100 or first $1,000. And then I would make it so that I'm putting more money, dollar cost averaging in over time, farther out, building the ladder backwards. Year 14, 13, 12, 11, fill those in, keep 10 how it is, fill in 9, 8, 7, 6, fill backwards over maybe a year of dollar cost averaging. And then, and I might do that a couple times a month or monthly. And then at some point, I would be taking the original 25%. Maybe I wouldn't be holding so much liquid as my staked amount grows. Like I've gotten to the point now personally where I am probably in between 97 and 99% staked. So I don't have to hold tons of liquid because the price has appreciated so much. So I can take gains when the price goes up, without suffering the penalty that could be caused by ending a stake early. If you start a stake, a 15-year stake, and you only serve a couple weeks or a month, you can lose your entire principal by ending it early. And so it's really important. And with my front end, go.tshare.app, it shows very clearly once you've started a stake what the penalty will be if you end it early. So that's can be helpful for people.
Very important to research it before you end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, important to keep some liquid. Good point, Terry Doc. Every 4 years, the whole crypto market moons and then crashes later the same year. It's history tends to rhyme, and not necessarily repeat exactly. But yeah, I mean, like that's been one of the patterns. And during that time, there's been a lot of monetary expansion. Right now is a rare time where there's monetary tightening. And so that has to stop before crypto prices can really moon again. Like they have to go back to printing lots of money. And that's ironic. The irony is not lost on me, but it looks like that's our show for tonight. We've been just over 3 hours. I hope it's been helpful for everybody. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure to follow Chrispy Man _1 on Twitter.
Yeah, and _2.
_2.
Yeah. And then I also like to big shout out to the share rate. Performing well, my friend, up and to the right all the time. The 17th, if you are planning to do stakes, no matter what you're staking, and that relies on the HEX T-share rate, try to get them in before the 17th, which is next Monday. Big change coming up.
Big change. The T-share rate is going up on Monday. Okay.
Yep, couple percent, 500 or so. HEX.
Oh, that's very good to know. I'm going to drop some links here in the chat. allmylinks.com/allin is where you find all of my stuff. allmylinks.com/timepaysme, where you can find everything about my project that allows you to time lock PulseChain and PulseX tokens. And I don't have a shortcut for this one, so I'm going to type it out. t.me/smartvaultme. No, if 50 people join, this might be the last time I promote it. Sure, join that Telegram. That's where I drop my daily alpha, whatever it might be. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching on the replay, hitting the like and subscribe button, leaving a comment. Check out hexfire.io to learn the best best takes on the future market supply of HEX and much more.
Yeah, I've been needing your help, man. I've been trying to figure out how to do my own streaming now.
Oh, cool.
Can't wait for your course. Waiting for
I'm
it.
supposed to come out with something soon about that.
I know.
So until next time, everybody, stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.